Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the WODCast Podcast. Oh God, is it a good hair day? This just makes me want to do an episode. I am so excited about this episode today. I am just shaking in my chair. I'm so excited about it. This is the WODCast Podcast where we talk about it's fitness, it's workouts, it's elitism. You know what it is. If you like to work out, but you like to talk about it more, this is the show for you. We're big talkers, little workers. That's what we are. No, come on, everybody, jump on board. If you like CrossFit, you like, I don't know, you like me, you like my comedy. I'm Ifft, stand-up comedian, performing. Nope, not this week. Canceled. A lot of this episode's about cancel culture, and I got canceled this week because of COVID. People don't want to be inside watching stand-up comedy, and they're changing hours. I'm in North Carolina right now at the in-laws place. If you can see, I am in my bedroom doing this show. My son is asleep in the other room, so I've got to be kind of quiet. But I'm not quiet during the show. I recorded earlier today with Sevan. If you guys know Sevan. Sevan is the savant of CrossFit. He is he's like I don't know if he is the OGest when it comes to media. It could have been, I didn't even ask him this, it could have been Tony Budding, could have been, wasn't Rory. Is it Tony Budding? I don't know. I could be wrong. I think he mentions it in the show. But Sevan Mattosian has been around CrossFit since the very, very beginning. I mean, not the very, very beginning, but like right after the beginning. He's one of the most interesting guys, and I think it comes out in this show. I think it's hard to take him for what he is on his podcast because he's interviewing. But it's nice to hear, like mine, I talk too much, so you guys all know who I am. But he's just asking questions, and he makes it about the other people, which is how you're supposed to do it. I just can't shut up about myself because, I don't know, I've got a big ego or low self-esteem or insecure, something like that. I don't know. Speaking of which, I just want to thank you guys. I do appreciate all of you. I thank everyone that participates in this show, especially our sponsors of this episode, which last minute, guys, if you're looking for something to stuff your stockings with, I got a whole bunch of ideas for you. How about you try Gooder sunglasses? Everybody would like them. I'm telling you, when they sent me them, I was like, whatever. I got them. I was like, these are effing awesome. I was like, I want them in every single color, style. They've got all different kinds of styles, all different. They've got crazy ones. They've got like the most normal sunglasses you can want. Best part is they're great for working out because they don't slide off your face. They're polarized. They look good. They look great. And they've got like this kind of matte rubber. How funny is it? I come home, I find a pair at my in-laws' house. I'm like, who's wearing this? My sister-in-law is wearing them. She loves them. I didn't tell her to get them or anything. She just found them on her own, and she loves them. Everyone I know loves them. That should have been what I gave everybody for Christmas, a pair of those, because they are exceptional. If you want to get 17% off, go to Gooder.com/WODCast. Okay, and it's Gooder, GOODR.com/WODCast. They're going to give you 17% off. Go look at all the different styles, all the different types. If you're going to work out with sunglasses on, there's no better choice. You're going to look cool, and they are functional. We like that word here in the CrossFit world. Here's another gift. Throw in that stocking. Ritual Proof, okay? Ritual Zero Proof. It's zero proof alcohol. You know what that means? Or zero proof spirits. No alcohol. Zero alcohol. You're like, why would you not want alcohol? Maybe you're an alcoholic and you can't drink, but you love the taste of gin, whiskey, or tequila. Maybe you're pregnant and you're not allowed to have alcohol. Maybe you're on medication. There could be a number of reasons that you can't have alcohol, but you still love to have a cocktail. This makes the best cocktails. You want a margarita? Boom! Throw some of this Ritual Zero Proof in there. You want a whiskey sour? Boom! Throw some of the whiskey in there. You want a what's good with gin? Is it a Tom Collins? Is it a gin and tonic? I don't know. Whatever your poison is, this doesn't have the poison in it. This will hydrate you. So it's Ritual Zero Proof. If you want to put this and stuff it in your stocking, you want to get $5 off your order, go to ritualzeroproof.com. You're going to use the promo code. You're going to use a promo code. The promo code will be WODCast Holiday. Is that easy for you? WODCast Holiday. And they're going to give you $5 off your first order. All right? So do that. Check it out. Also, as always, why don't you throw in a Myopux? You know what a Myopux is? It's an electronic muscle stimulator. It's great. Go to myopux.com. Electronic muscle stimulator flushes all that bad blood out of the area that is injured, getting you healthy. I use it all the time, constantly. Every injury I get lots of them because I'm an old man. Throw on the pads, turn it up, crank it up, let those muscles start going. Din, 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 din. Can you see it? Can you see my giant bicep and tricep? Din, 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 din. It just does that. And then it flushes all the bad stuff. It expedites the inflammatory process. And throw in a leopard claw to that too. Leopard claw is a multi-tool device that's used to locate all kinds of like adhesions that you might have in your fascia. And you're going to scrape it out. It's like a gua sha or a Graston. And you use that thing. These guys are great. They support the Resiliency Foundation, which helps all our troops downrange when they get injured. Because think about it. You're out there on a deployment. You're going to get some injuries, and they take care of these guys. So check them out. They've been helping the show. Troy over there at Leopard Claw Myopux couldn't be a better supporter of the WODCast. Like, great guy, great supporter of the show. We have a lot of great friends, and as Christmas comes around, I want to thank them. People like Jeremy Lesniak, people like, there's been so many. Bud Adams has done a lot for the show. Obviously Scott McGee and Arm & Hammer, so much for the show. And so I just want to thank everybody that's been a part of the show. I don't want to forget about anybody. Bobby, Crazy Bobby, and Hunter McIntyre have done a lot. And, just really, really good people, lots of help. Am I forgetting anyone that's helped out with the show in some way or not? So many of you write to me, and also a lot of you support the show through the Patreon. Michael Fratelli, he's our new video guy. I want to thank Michael for all his help with the videos. But I want to thank all the Patreon supporters. It's guys like you that help me take care of the big guy, Ernie, Machete Hurtado, who has been with me since day one of my podcasting career, and I couldn't have a better right-hand man. So as Christmas comes in, I just want to thank all those people that have supported the show, been part of the show, especially you Patreoners. You listen to the show, you comment. Anybody that comments, thank you for going on iTunes, commenting, rating, reviewing. And if you give that $5 a month, you could get yourself a Myopux and a Leopard Claw. We give one away every single week. They're like $450 together, and you get it for giving $5 a month. At the end of the year was $5 a month, huh? 5 times 12, you give $60 and you get a $450 gift. Wow, can you beat that? No, you can't. So let's congratulate and thank the winner this week. Let's see, who did I write down? I wrote it down somewhere. I'm trying to find it. No, that's last week's winner. I might have to tell it later in the episode. I'm going to have to get back to it. You guys were all on the edge of your seats. You're like, did I win? No, you don't know if you won. But you will find out in the middle of the show if you won. How about that? So you got to listen to the show. Can't just listen to the beginning because I didn't do my homework. No, I didn't. All right. Anyway, I'm going to have to find the winner. Here's the deal. This episode is a super long one because we got really honest. We talked a lot about what's going on with COVID. We talked about cancel culture. We talked about Glassman. We talked about CrossFit and what happened and where it is now. We talked about children because if you check out Sevan's Instagram, you'll find out he's super dad and he does really cool shit with his sons, and he's we should all learn from him. But it was like the Dave Castro episode. I never thought that Dave Castro and I would bond and I would think he was as cool as fuck as I do, but the same thing happened today. This guy, I just did not know what I was going to get, was not what I thought it was, and I told him at the end of the show, you'll hear, I tell him friends for life. So I hope you enjoy this episode. Like I said, my tour, I am going to start touring in January. I will be in Las Vegas. I will be, it looks like I'm going to Lake Tahoe. Looks like I'm going to go to Las Vegas a couple times. So I'm going to be out there. I've got to feed the family. So any of you that are like, this is bad, we're on lockdown, people are dying. I know, and I feel terrible about it, but I need to feed the family. So, or you can just, my Patreon, you can give, if you want to support my family, you just give me like a couple $100,000. I can put my kids through school and all kinds of shit like that. So, yeah, I'll take it. Look at that. I'm like an angel with that light above my head. Check out our YouTube page, everybody. We're putting these videos up. You're not watching them. I'm going to cut that. It costs me money. I'm going to cut it if you're not going to watch it. I don't know how to get those out there, but, I don't know. I need to post more on Instagram and Facebook and all that. I know. God damn it. All right, well, let's get moving with this episode because it was a really fun one and it's really long, okay? It's long for a reason. It's good. It was that good. It was that interesting. I never once looked at the clock, never wanted to get off the show. I could have talked to Sevan for hours. So I hope you enjoy it as much as I do. And please let me know what you think. I love knowing what you guys think of the episodes. I got really good feedback on the Dave Castro episode. But, and let me know who you want to see on the show. Okay? Well, that's that. And enjoy this episode.
You need to warn people not to look at your stuff before they get on the air with you. It just intimidated me. I was like, I'm going to research this guy. And then I'm like 20 minutes into it. I'm like, what the fuck am I doing to myself? I'm the funniest person I know. And now I'm not even in the top 10.
I was a different person back then. I feel awful about what I've done, what people have seen and heard of me before I had children. The things that went through my mind, what a different person I was. The darkness, the absurd, anything to me. I'm sorry, wait, everything was funny. And now, now that I have kids, it's changed so much where I see things and I'm like, I can't laugh at that anymore. Like I used to talk about how I could go to strip clubs when I was on the road and everybody's like, come on, let's go to the titty bar. And I was like, yeah. And like a few years ago, I went to a bachelor party and I was just sitting there miserable. And everybody's like, what's wrong? I'm like, she has a father. Like, what is she doing up there?
Hey, did that ruin your career then? Is that a setback or is that a challenge that makes you better?
It's fun.
I sound old doing things like that.
It's funny. I hate to use him as an example because he's turned out to be such a piece of shit. But Bill Cosby was one of my comedy heroes because he was funny at every stage of his life, where he just kept getting, like, as a single guy, he was funny. As a parent, as a married guy, he was funny. As a parent, he was funny. As a grandfather, he was funny. And it was all the different stages of his life and what he was going through. I mean, like, he's probably the funniest guy and the funniest rapist in prison right now. Like he's you can't deny. I always say, can you take can you separate the art from the artist? And for some reason, we didn't do it with Michael Jackson, which people are going to come at me for this one. But with Cosby, you kind of have to. Like, you can't laugh at him anymore because you're just like, oh, what an awful person, which shows, like, comedy, you have to be likable. But my comedy's changed. It's all about my kids, my life, my perspective now as a parent, as a father, as, you know, the breadwinner, as it's not, hey, I'm a single guy running around the world trying to find the craziest things that can happen to me. So
reality is so weird. I don't remember the guy's name, but there were these two coaches. I don't even remember the college. I'm going to say Penn State, and the guy's name was Sandusky, but I don't but I'm not even sure. But I think he was a pedophile, or he witnessed pedophilia and he didn't report it. And they pull, and you know, obviously since I have kids, it's one of the things that, like, I pretty much let everything fly in the world. I don't judge anyone or anything for it's like just going out and just beating people and pedophilia. Those are two things like I just don't have any threshold for. And but that being said, to pull down they took away wins from his record.
Yeah.
Because he was a child molester. That's fucking complete idiocy to me. Like, don't fucking lie to yourself because this guy's a scumbag. Let's not change. Like, that has nothing to do with his football wins. He's still the greatest coach in the world and a pedophile. I mean, and people always tell me, hey, you're conflating the guy who witnessed it and didn't report it with the guy who did it. I apologize for that. But
I know.
I just don't like lying to myself or to anyone about, like, his football record. It's like it's conflating issues. Shut the fuck up. You're taking away from what a scumbag he is. But I just don't like it.
Yeah, it's weird. I was not close to that story, but I grew up in Pittsburgh. My dad was involved with the University of Pittsburgh football program. My dad knew that coach, Jerry Sandusky. And it was funny. My dad's like, he seemed like a nice guy, you know, and who would have known? And
Right.
It was the head coach, Joe Paterno, who kind of was informed about what was going on and just turned and looked the other way because all he cared about was football. And he was like, look, you know, just get rid of him, whatever. But he basically, they're like, he should have gone to the police and he should have reported this and let it go. It's a weird, you know, I'm like you, like anyone, pedophilia, there couldn't be anything probably worse in this world, having children. And you just imagine, you know, what kind of maniac you would turn into, like murdering people if it ever happened to one of your children or blah, blah, blah. However, I have this weird philosophy on it that I don't really like to talk about but I do, because I talk about everything. I watched that whole trial and everything. I watched the movies about it and everything. And Jerry Sandusky, the guy who did it, monster, right? You know, obviously. And people were like on the steps of like the courthouse when he was being tried. And they're like, kill him, murder him, send him to death. He's a monster. He's a monster. At the same time, there was a case like this happening in Syracuse where a coach from years ago kind of did something similar. And his victims grew up, and one of his victims ended up being a pedophile, which they say is like common where, you know, kids that are victims of trauma end up growing up and doing that in some cases. So I said, you know, you're calling him a monster. And everybody's like, the victims, what about the victims? What about the victims? And I was like, okay, let's fast forward 30 years from now, and one of these victims has done the same thing. Do you now yell, murder him, throw him in jail? He's a monster. Or do we go, as a society, we did something wrong here? Like we did not address this issue and this problem. And I sometimes think when you look at the amount of statistics of like it happening, I feel like we're not handling this problem in the proper way. And, you know, where these people are obviously sick. Like there's a sickness that allows, and we automatically go to this vindictive, murder them, kill them, destroy them, instead of like, we have to figure out why they did this and not create a safe space but create a space where we don't create this world where that's going to happen, where it's not like, hey, we're going to cut off your hands. It's like, hey, go get help before you do this so that you won't do this. But I feel like we've made this world where no one that is like that or has this is ever going to go get help. and they're going to hide it and repress it, and then you get the Catholic Church. And so it's a tough thing to talk about without having people be like, wait, are you excusing this? No, I'm not excusing it at all. And I'm not an apologist for them at all. I'm just saying there's a cycle of violence, and I think obviously we're not doing the best we can do as a society to stop it. And that's me not being funny at all.
The big picture there too, that you spot on, is that society thinks that they're doing the right thing so many times when they're being so utterly selfish and just doing what makes them feel good, and just like basically putting your energies into making the audience feel good instead of like fixing and addressing the problem. So persecute. I don't know how you feel about this, but I think the COVID situation is exactly the same. There's this sentiment to, by any means necessary, get rid of COVID, and yet it's a huge mistake to think like that, because what if the cost is more than the solution? And does more. What if the cost of getting rid of COVID does more damage than COVID itself? And it's like that, with this pedophilia thing. You're right. Like you want, not you, Eddie, but people want vindication. They want payback. They want punishment. But do you want it to be the last time a kid gets molested? If so, that's the way you need to go at it. And that's what I think you're proposing. Like, what's the solution to stop it forever, not to just fucking smash the guy who fucking did it and then let the victims go on and continue, the few that do. You see how I said that? The few that do, that's like me being scared of the mob.
You said that very succinctly, where it took me like 10 minutes to say it. That's why I write my jokes down and then work on them for people are like, oh, do you just say something? It's fun. I'm like, no, I've got to do it like 50 times. My in-laws, I'm staying at my in-laws right now, and they're like, why don't you just record a new album, about all the stuff that's happened? I'm like, because I can't perform it. I need to go up on stage like 50 times before a joke gets perfected and can be in an album. And they're like, oh, why? Why don't you just tell it to us? I'm like, it doesn't work like that. Yeah, I could get on the whole COVID thing because I'm a somewhere in the middle guy of all of it, where I'm like, I kind of wish I could. This is one of those times where I could be a politician, and I'm like, okay, let's protect our at-risk people and quarantine them and keep them in a bubble basically until there's a vaccine, and let everybody else who isn't at risk keep the economy going so that everybody can survive, and then we can mitigate the risk and work on dealing with the people that happen to not seem at risk that end up getting sick, but really work on keeping people from nursing homes, people with comorbidities, obese people, whatever it is, and protect them, which I think we're doing half of each of those. And so, like, the mixture of not doing half is creating, hell. So,
I'm like really good at like 3rd and 4th grade math, and like adding, subtracting, dividing, multiplying. Not dividing as much as adding and subtracting. And I'm always putting things in my head into relative perspective. So, like, if you said to me, I did 50 shows last year, I would right away in my head, without even trying, being like, okay, 1 out of 6 days last year, he was standing in front of a stage. Mm-hmm. And if you told me your average show had 200 people on it, I would right away be like, okay, 200 times 50. And I'm just always doing that, putting things into relative perspective, always, just so I can get my head wrapped around it. So if you were like, there's 1 million people in prisons in the United States, I'd be like, okay, there's 330 million people. That's 1 out of 330 people. A bus holds 50 people. So that's out of every 6 buses. I'm just constantly doing that. And I do that with the COVID thing non-stop in my head. And I feel like no one around me is doing that. Or like when I hear like, hey, they spent this many billions of dollars to cure COVID, I would be like, hey, why didn't they just buy steaks and vegetables for everyone who wanted them in the United States for 21 days, lower their A1C, and then no one could die from COVID?
Yeah, I've done
blood sugar level, and I'm just constantly racking my brain like that. I'm like, what the fuck is going on? Does anyone do simple 4th grade math anymore?
Well, I kind of did that, and I've always been beating the drum about health. And I don't want to be that guy right now because I feel like everybody hates me for that already. You know, like when I say everybody, I mean my family. But what I, and you know, doctors like to, or the media, I'm sorry, the media likes to point out the anomalies all the time, the people that were super healthy that got sick. And
Yes.
and you're like, that's an anomaly. And why do you do that? Why don't you be honest with us as the media? Why we have such political correctness that it's so hard for them to say, hey, 50% of this is happening in the Black Hispanic community. Hey, the Black and Hispanic community have difficulty getting vitamin D because of the darkness of their skin. And so maybe they should supplement with vitamin D that can, because, you know, we've seen the high rates of COVID with people with low vitamin D. Okay, then we break it down to the poverty issue. Then we break it down to like lack of adequate health care. So then you can kind of look at your possibility. I mean, I think it's one of these, the media feels like they need, this is, I have to say this all the time, that I'm a very, very I'm a registered independent. I hear things from the conservative world that I'm like, well, that sounds great. And I hear things from the liberal world that I'm like, that sounds great. We should find a consensus. And that's how I believe our government works. But now we live in a world where the polar extremes are the only ones that people listen to. So in saying that, you've got the liberals and I say it with that, like the liberals, because they do anger me, the hard left at this point, just like the hard right does too. But the left always feels this need to protect everyone. And, you know, there's been this victimization kind of thing of like, let's take care of the victim. Let's take care of the victim. And I've always felt like that's like saying, oh, you're better than them. Like the whole race thing. Like, let's, you know, we need affirmative action. And I'm always like, who are you to say you're better than them and you need to protect them and you need to do this and you need to do that? You're no better than them. You know, like they are your equal. Stop trying to make them your equal, because they are your equal. And we're in this situation now where they're doing this, like, we need to protect the at-risk because everybody's too dumb and nobody will do it. And it's like, well, maybe they would have if you were honest with them from the beginning and didn't lie to them. Because once you've lied to them, they don't trust you anymore. And this is why we have a society where none of us trust anyone. And I don't want to get into this conversation, but I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but I have trouble believing and trusting anyone because I'm an agnostic. And I was brought up in the church, a Catholic church, and spent years in it, like 30 years till I finally read some books. And I'm completely agnostic, you know, just don't know what is out there. I feel like the universe is so gigantic that I have no idea. Well, everybody's lying to me about the Bible, I feel like, and all this, and that's like their foundation and my family's foundation and the world I grew up in, and, you know, 90% of America. Well, they lie about that. You know, how can I trust them about anything else?
What do you mean they lie about that?
Well,
meaning like God doesn't exist? Or?
Well, not that God doesn't, but everything in the Bible I feel like is horseshit. And, you know, everything I've read about the Bible and the creation of the Bible, and, you know, it's all man-made horseshit. The Council of Nicaea and all this stuff, and none of it is like gender. It's yeah.
I'm gonna say something really crazy. I ran this by a friend the other day, and he's like, "Hey, you better be careful with that one." But I'm not gonna be careful with it. When I listen to people like Candace Owens talk, hardcore conservative, she sounds so smart, and then she starts bringing in God, and I'm like, Jesus, why did you do that? Yeah. Why are you conflating logic with God? And it's the same thing when I hear the left talk about gender. I'm like, oh, you sound so smart. Oh my God, why are you conflating? You cannot point to God and you cannot point to gender. And when I say gender, I'm distinguishing it from sex, cock and balls and vagina.
Yeah.
And like, hey, I don't want to hear about your boogeyman. If you're going to make something up, you better point to it. Like, hey, that stoplight over there is red, and we're going to agree that it means stop. Now, that's made up, and you can point to it. But you point to gender, it's inside your head, which is cool. It's just your thoughts. And you cannot point to your God. So don't conflate them when we're talking about stuff that's real.
Well,
like just keep it focused on reality for me.
I agree.
I'm not saying it's not real to those people, but don't conflate it when we're communicating and arguing with each other, because now you're talking about the boogeyman, and my kids do that shit.
I agree with you completely, and it sometimes baffles me that we have some of the most intelligent people in the world, and I'm not saying politicians are some of the most, but there are like Supreme Court justices, and there are people in politics that have, these Harvard and Yale backgrounds that are just so smart. They're out there, and I know people are politicians.
Yes,
they're brilliant people, and when they start to talk about God, I think 90% of the time they are doing that to get their votes. That they're like, hey, these people believe in the boogeyman. I'm going to talk about the boogeyman because I just need their votes. Like we all know Trump was not a religious man in the least bit, but knew that he needed that vote. So he played it, and he was just like, whatever. You saw when he was holding the Bible, he was like, this is burning my hand.
Did he say that?
No. You could just tell when he held it upside down at the church. He was just like,
right.
So my point is, but some of these guys, like you look at like a Pompeo or a William Barr, who are really, really smart guys who have these like the pedigree and the background and everything. But then you look to their history, they are truly, really, really conservative religious people. And it's like, how smart are they then? That with all their education and all their knowledge and all their ability to use analytical reasoning and read books, that they still then, because they say something like 97% of the scientific community does not believe in God. And so you could say the scientific community are the smartest people in the world. Well, how about these politicians that are in
let's say there is a God. Let's say there is a God too, Eddie, and you talk to God every night. Then you should remember when you didn't believe in God that's not transferable in a conversation when we're trying to figure out whether we should go right or left at the highway. Like, hey, keep it like, why are you invoking this thing that only you can know and that you had to find by yourself, and that's not transferable?
Exactly.
And when you tell me there's infinite genders on the other side, I'm like, there you go. That's your fucking God.
Yeah.
You have a fucking God too. And it's just that shit between people's ears.
I don't know when the gender thing, I was introduced to it by all the Jordan Peterson stuff, and where I didn't know it was an issue, and I didn't know people were battling about it. And when I started to go down that wormhole, I was like, really? This is so
unhealthy.
Do any of these people have children? Do any of these people, from...
Oh, you sound like a conservative. Careful.
Well, it's weird. I will say things that are so ultra liberal, and I will say things that are so not ultra, but my next album I'm going to call ultra moderate. It's I
approve.
I don't know how anybody that has children. Don't get me wrong. I believe there are children that are born that feel like they're living in the wrong body, and I believe I'm all for, if you want to be a transgender and you want to change your gender, like that's your life, and you should have the freedom to do that. Absolutely.
100%.
I don't believe a parent should be doing that with a child. I don't believe that
100%
brain is developed enough to make that decision that's so long lasting, especially gender reassignment surgery. I mean, any kind of like if my kid,
you shouldn't even smoke weed as a fucking kid until your brain's developed.
Yeah,
all us old fuckers know that.
Yeah, I'm not letting my kid get a tattoo before it, let alone a vagina. Like you can make that decision if you feel that way when you're older and you want to do that, and it's your body and it's your life. You could do what you want. Like, I'm pro-choice. You want to get an abortion, you can get an abortion. You want to get a vagina, you get a vagina. But not until you're old enough to do it. Now, somebody would say, well, what if you're...
Yeah,
what if
you can get a car when you're 16, and when you're 24, you can get a vagina. One of my favorite... I'm gonna write the doctrine on that shit.
One of my favorite old jokes was, I probably botch it and won't remember it because I did it in like 2003 or something. Was it's funny how we have these arbitrary ages in America. Like 16, you can drive. 18, you can smoke cigarettes. 21, you can drink. 25, best age ever. Rental car, like 25. Right. 25, like
I remember that.
You can be 18, go to war in Iraq, and drive a tank, but not if it's an Avis. You know, like
At 24, you need a note from your mom at the Hertz counter
Yeah.
still.
How weird is that we let kids go drive like Humvees and tanks over in Afghanistan and Iraq, but you cannot go to Hertz and get a PT Cruiser like that. That's not happening.
Sorry, did I interrupt you?
No, I've been talking way too much. The show's supposed to be my interview show. I interview you. I have 7,000 questions for you. 7,000.
No questions.
And all I ever hear you do is ask questions, and you're doing it to me.
If I lived in Nazi Germany in God, I'm going to show how stupid I am.
That's going to be the name of my new album.
In 1942, and some guy yelled from his front porch, "Hey, all you big nose fuckers, you better run." I wouldn't be like, who's calling me a big nose fucker?
Yeah.
I wouldn't spend any time worrying about that. Zero. I would fucking run full speed at tourist border because I would not want to fucking get tossed in an oven.
Yeah.
And the problem we have with society right now, and at some point, and this is a drum I've been pounding, the people who are not telling the truth are going to be accomplices to the deaths of all the sick people in this fucking country. Anytime you mention obesity or some sort of sickness that's what really this COVID thing is just ravaging people on, people are like, hey, you're fat phobic. Hey, you're fat shaming. Hey. It's the same thing with like if we were all standing on a railroad track and the train's coming and the guy's got a swastika on him and a KKK hat and we all stood there and been like, the conductor's racist. That's not the time.
Yeah.
Get the fuck off the track. And as he passes, we'll throw rocks at his ass.
Yeah.
But not while we're standing. And civilization is standing on this fucking railroad track. Not me. I got the fuck off. And the train's coming. And the media is being so loud about how the conductor's racist or a bigot or whatever. You choose your metaphor. And it's sad to me because then the voice of people who are giving solutions can't be heard. And that's like one of the things that drives me the most crazy. The fear is so loud that the solution can't be heard. So basically, so my Instagram account next to my name in my profile, I wrote comedian. Because when I was a kid, I always watched Abbott and Costello.
Loved them.
Like non-stop. And I always wanted to be a comedian. I fucking loved Abbott and Costello. Not so much Three's Company, even though I watched all the episodes. I didn't like that kind of humor, but I watched Abbott and Costello like a maniac. And Rodney Dangerfield was the first concert I ever went to. I won the tickets when I was like 9 years old from a radio station, and my mom took me. And I loved dirty, filthy humor. But I wrote comedian next to my name for two reasons in my Instagram profile. You're like, where's he going with this? One, because it's always been a dream of mine. And then, so I just, okay, and I'll just anoint myself as a comedian. But number two is, I want to be able to say shit. I already did the first step, so you can say whatever you want. I lost my job. Number two, I wrote next to my name comedian. Like if I wanted to beat women, I would put rapper or boxer. But I just want to say shit. I just want to try to talk some sense into people. I just want to be a responsible orator.
For a while, we were that. It was really great. I made a documentary film on satire. From about
What's it called?
It was called America the Punchline. I never got it out thanks to Barack Obama, because it was about how the world perceived America, seen through the eyes of stand-up comedians all over the world. And I traveled all over from China to Africa to Scandinavia to the Middle East, and I would interview the top comics and go perform with them all over the world. And what I found was, because I was on that tour from like about 2000 till 2007, I was just constantly in a different country, and I found that. And this was during the Gulf War, or the second Gulf War, that in Iraq, that everybody was making fun of America. And I didn't realize that like we were the common denominator, that like we were such a focal point of the rest of the world. And that, you know, growing up in America, you think we're number one, everybody loves us, America's the greatest. And then I went to these countries and I'd get in the green room and comics would be like, you fucking assholes, look what you've done now. And I was like, whoa, hey, God bless America, you know. And And so I started to see this, and I learned all about like why the Greeks and Romans created satire, and it was to fight the power. Because when you're powerless, the only thing you can do is use satire. And the Greeks and Romans used to try to kill their leaders with satire. Like they would try to get them, embarrass them to commit suicide. I remember Michael Moore saying in the beginning of the Trump era, he said, the only way you're going to defeat this guy is by satire, by like abusing the fuck out of him, which was completely wrong, because as much as he hates it, he loves it because it gives him press. And the only thing he thrives on just attention, good or bad. So that was a bad idea.
Me too.
Yeah. That was, do you really? Some people do.
Someone asked me today. Someone asked. I don't need to be the center of attention, but someone asked me today. They text me. They said, "Hey, are you going to get the vaccine?" I said, "Yeah, if it comes with a job." and they didn't catch I was being funny. And they said, "Oh, what kind of work are you looking for?" And I said, "I'm not. I'm just trying to be funny and get attention." But anyway.
Well, it's funny when I do stand up, people are like, don't you hate the oohs or the ahs, and I'm like, no, they make me feel better and stronger because I'm getting a reaction. Ultimately, I'd like everybody to laugh, and I ultimately work on the joke till I get everyone to laugh, because it's more fun to get people to laugh at the shit they don't want to laugh at. But in saying that, I hate opening Instagram or YouTube or whatever and seeing all the rude shit and the like, you suck and you're terrible and blah blah blah. So I don't like that attention. I like, I would much rather read.
No, I agree. I
really enjoy what you do. It's funny, and saying that this is transitioning me into asking you questions. You guys at CrossFit, I have had, just from like, I'm just a guy on the side that's always loved CrossFit. I have a not love hate, a little bit of like pull the pigtails. Love it. Do it myself, but so cynical and so hypercritical that I just like to pick at everything. I do it with my parents, I do it with everything that I love. So I think I had the wrong perspective of like most of the people that were like high up at CrossFit and the original CrossFitters, like the OGs, the Matt Chans and the Jason Kalipas and everybody from you name
those guys are second. Those guys are second.
Yeah, I know. That's funny that you're even. I mean, like, okay, even the guys like James Fitzgerald, whoever I'm going to talk about.
But go on. Don't let.
But
yes,
Castro, I had Castro on a couple weeks ago. I had totally misjudged the guy without getting to know him. From his media perspective, to me, I had judged him on what I saw. Spending 2 hours talking to the guy, I was like, this guy is not the guy that I thought he was. And if I had just sat down and had a beer with this guy, I would have found out otherwise, that I really like him. And what he's doing, I totally agree with. And we have so much more in common than we don't have in common. And I found that with just everybody, from Pat Barber to, like, very infrequently have I met a guy in this world that I go, oh, what an asshole. Like, there are a few, but it's not the ones I thought. And I feel like this whole world, this internet, this screen, just does not give a portrayal of any of us. And none of us are who we seem to be.
None of us?
None of us.
Oh, man. Well, I will. I can't hear Dave Castro's name without saying that I've traveled the world extensively, like yourself. I've been to 49 of the states. I've been to 100 countries. I've filmed in 100 countries.
What? See, this is why I should be interviewing you. Hold on. Stop. Let's put it. What state did you miss?
Alaska.
Yeah. You're not missing anything.
And I've been to all the continents, and I've just met some incredible people. I have never met a human being with more integrity than Dave Castro. And so it pains me anytime anyone says anything negative about him, because integrity, until you meet someone who has true integrity, you don't really even know. It's one of those things you have to like be around to like be like, holy shit.
Yeah.
That's a lot. And that it's a tragedy that people would persecute someone for having integrity. I mean, it is like off the charts, his honesty and effectiveness at just getting shit done because he has integrity and he believes in everyone around him. And so that troubles a lot of people too, right? Because if you don't believe in yourself and someone believes in you and you have to live up to their belief, that can be difficult too. But if you are an overachiever and you are someone who wants to get better and you do believe in honesty at all costs, then that's your dude. I mean, he is, and that's what makes him such a potent fucking leader. But it was, I don't work there anymore and I don't work with him anymore. But when I did work with him, it was a super crazy steep learning curve.
Okay.
But once I got into that with him, I was like, holy shit. I'm older than him. And he was sort of like my, God, I shouldn't say this.
Moral compass.
No, I was going to use the word mentor, but he really, he catapulted me. Like I had no idea what leadership was or what integrity was. Like you can think you do until you start, if you hang out with turtles all the time and then you think that the fastest turtle in the group is fast, and then all of a sudden you meet a rabbit, you're like, oh shit.
Right,
And Dave's kind of like that. He takes everything to the next level.
Yeah, that's
everything. And what's even more amazing is not to say he's not smart. He's very, very smart, but none of it has to do with smarts. It has to do with something that every single one of us humans can turn on or off once we see what it is. And that's just integrity and believing in other people.
It's funny.
It's remarkable. He's magical.
It's funny you say that, because now as you say that, being the cynic, the comic that I am, I'm like, let me find all the chinks in his armor now. It's like whenever
right.
whenever you see someone that someone gives such accolades to, I'm like, they must not be a good parent. Or, I'm like always trying to find that, like, where are they falling short? Because it'll make me feel better about myself that, like I watched your Instagram forever last night and was showing my wife, and we I try to make my kids do all kinds of crazy shit and want them to be happy, healthy, and strong and all that stuff. And I watched yours and I'm like, I'm a failure. I'm an absolute failure.
Yes, that's the whole point of my Instagram.
My kids suck. Like, oh, I can't get them to do anything. And my 1.5-year-old, he's not benching 400 pounds yet. He can't do 12 pull-ups. I got to make another kid.
Hey, so that being said, I interviewed Miranda and Julian. They're the phenomenal,
street
fucking
parking
success. Yeah,
I called him
crazy.
I called him Julio, and from that second on, I was like, this interview is shot.
You can call him whatever you want. When someone's that good looking, they should be able to take anything.
I know. That guy's again got it all.
I'm like, how am I going to interview him and just staring at your perfect skin the entire fucking time? So since then I've been, I've tried to kindle a friendship with them. So I try to DM them or text them once in a while. And she's given me some gems. And basically she said, hey, show your kids fucking up more. My words, not hers. And I was like, wow, okay. And so in the last 2 weeks, I've noticed I've been showing that more. Slower, longer videos, my kids fucking up, balls bouncing off their head, them falling down, showing their struggles, as opposed to just showing my, we work out in there an hour and I get one good clip and it's like, nah, look what my kid can do and yours can't. She's like, nah, chill on that shit. I mean, in a nice way, she told me that.
But I mean, that's
show the progressions.
Look, people do want to see, especially in this world we live in where everybody wants to see everything. People do want to see that the humanity and but people also want to. When I saw your kid do 20 round or 40 rounds or whatever on the monkey bars, I was like, my daughter and I are watching.
Yeah, that was my neighbor's. That was my neighbor's kid. That broke my heart.
Oh, really?
The neighbor's girl came over and destroyed my boys.
Wait, so how many kids do you have?
That girl came over to the house. I have 3.
Okay.
The beautiful blonde girl is not mine.
Oh.
The 3 beautiful boys are mine that look like girls.
But they're a lot younger.
Yeah, that girl came over to the house.
The boys are a lot younger than her.
My oldest boy is about 6 months younger than her.
Oh, really?
And
she's a tall girl.
Yeah, and her dad's a giant, 6'5", 240 lean fighting machine, and the mom, tall, beautiful blonde woman, all 5'10", I'm guessing, and they made this fucking wonder child,
Okay, because I was like,
and that's her.
but
And she and just last week they take jujitsu together, and just last week she just beat the shit out of my poor boy. I was like, oh my god. I kind of should have filmed that. People would have loved that. I mean, poor Avi. I mean, I've never seen him cry in jiu-jitsu, and he walked off the mat crying.
there's like 7,000 questions I got to rapid fire a few of them. Where do you live? Are you in Santa Cruz?
I'm in Santa Cruz, California,
Okay.
not by choice. When I eventually, this is where Greg Glassman lived, the owner of CrossFit. I was his right-hand man for 15 years. I ran the media department at CrossFit, obviously, and so I came down here.
Okay, so I knew, I know your media background and everything like that. But I remember hearing I interviewed Lauren Glassman once, and or Janai.
I'm sorry.
It was a fun interview. And the takeaway I got is that Glassman lives nowhere. He's like in Carlsbad. He's in Phoenix or Scottsdale. He's in Oregon. He's in, like, the guy's just got houses everywhere and lives everywhere. And so I was like, where is he? Like, it just seems like it's like he's like Waldo or Carmen Sandiego. Where in the world is Greg Glassman at this moment? Which I would love to know where he is right now. And I hope he's on a beach somewhere in drinking Mai Tais, just bathing in his own money.
He, some of those things are true. You just said, there was a 2-year period. There was a 2 or 3 year period where my wife and I lived with Greg, where basically she was his personal assistant. I was in the media department, and he had this giant home in San Diego, California, and we lived there with him. And I actually, in that home, I raised Avi for the first year of his life. So I was extremely close to Greg.
Okay.
And there was a period where, I think I looked on a calendar. It was like 18 months, and we never stayed in one for more than 5 days. That's how often we were moving. It was crazy. And so traveling is, I don't want to say a favorite pastime of his, because sometimes you'll hear him say, fuck, I just want to stay still. But in all the years I've known him, the longest I've ever seen him stay, I think he went to Cameroon once on vacation, which is really unlike Greg to do vacation.
Mm-hmm.
And I think he went to Cameroon or some shit like that, some island like that for 2 weeks. And other than that, the man is on the move. The man is on the move.
Well, I get that. And, I was sort of like that myself, traveling around the world, just constantly, like,
right,
never saying no to a gig, never, ever, ever,
right,
until I kind of got married.
Did you make that commitment? Did you tell yourself, like, hey, I'll never, I'll never turn down a gig?
In 2000, yeah, well, I was a workhorse. I seemed like a lazy kid growing up, and then I became like when it came to comedy, I just wanted it so bad that I never, ever turned down a gig. I would do a gig in the back of a laundromat. I would do a gig, every gig, all the time. My agents and managers would say, don't do that gig, and I would sneak in and do the gig without them knowing, because it was like a drug getting on stage. And I would do, my record was 11 shows in one night in New York City. Just because I felt like it was like basketball. And the more I played, the better I got. And there was also this like undying need for attention too. I used to see people on stage getting laughs, and I would like be tugging at the manager going, get them down and put me on. Like, I need that. It was like this, there was like this hatred towards the person on stage getting the laughs, or the feeling of like the audience might leave, or they might like get tired. And I need that. Like
everyone only has 30 laughs, and that guy just took 25
well,
of them.
It's true. People do. They have an exhaustion point where they start to get tired, and you can also use all the references and hit all the points that, like that's all the roasts you see. Nobody wants to go late in a roast because all the good jokes have been taken. So, and all you see is the edit afterwards. You don't see, like, you write these 50 jokes, and then you go on a roast, and they've done 43 of your jokes, and you're like, oh my God, this is all I have left now? These jokes were so good, but the guy before me hit on this and hit on this and hit on this. So once it's been touched on, it's done. So going back to that, like that need and that going, what happened was in 2000, I got a sitcom deal with Warner Brothers and Castle Rock Entertainment for a show called Living for Nothing about me. I used to live with my sister in New York City and
Congratulations.
her hedge fund husband for 8 years. 8 years I lived with them. And I used to do, like, my whole act was about living.
Did he hate you or love you?
He loved me, but I think there was a bit of like,
oh shit,
what the, like, they kind of lived vicariously through me because they had this like nerdy lifestyle of like bankers. And here I was just waking up at noon every day and partying all night, and had all these like crazy celebrity friends coming over to like Dave Chappelle would be coming over to the house, and they were like, what? And, so
I love it.
So I had this weird life because when I pitched, and I had this group of friends that was like me, like voiceover actors, or, just, trust funders, or people that could like have the activities like I did during the day. So they gave me a sitcom, and I thought my life had been going like this trajectory from the day I started stand up, just skyrocketing. And I thought, this is just, I'm going to be a star. I'm going to be a multimillionaire. I'm going to live in mansions. I'm going to keep acting like an asshole, like jumping a Lamborghini into my own pool. And then like, it was like, this is what's going to happen. And it came crashing down so hard within a 6-month period that my head was spinning, and I almost had to like go into therapy. And I'm from an Irish Catholic old, family where you don't go to therapy. And I was like, I'm losing my mind. I feel like I'm in the Truman Show and they did this to me. Like they literally, I had a TV show on VH1 that I was on. I had a pilot with FX. I had a TV show deal with Castle Rock and Warner Brothers. I had a pilot going.
What happened? Did you get caught masturbating in public or something?
No, I didn't do anything. It was just, I didn't realize that's how Hollywood is that like the people you see are just so lucky or so super talented that they're undeniable. And I wasn't either. And
you just fell off you were on the treadmill and you just slipped off.
And once you slip off, no one will pick up the phone. And
wow.
And I called a guy in England.
Oh, you're breaking my heart.
I called a guy that I met at the Montreal Comedy Festival, which is this huge comedy festival where they go when they're breaking you out. It's called the New Faces at the Just for Laughs Festival. Hall of Hollywood goes to watch you. And I was in that. And my class was like me, Kevin Hart. There's always a new class every year of the New Faces. And our New Faces were like, everybody ended up becoming a star. And so when I was at New Faces, a British agent came up to me and said, hey, we'd love to bring you to Britain to do shows. And I was like, yeah, dude. Do you see this? Do you see what's going on here? You can go fuck yourself. do you see Jon Stewart eating breakfast with me right now? Like this is, and when it all came crashing down, I literally couldn't get gigs. Because you lose your heat, and I was cold as ice. And I called this guy in England and I said, hey, can I come over? And he said, yeah. And I said, okay, when? And he's like, when do you want to come? I'll get your visa, blah, blah, blah. You can come over for 3 months. And I said, okay, I'll come for 3 months. And my girlfriend had just dumped me and I was broke and everything was falling apart. And I went over and I bombed my first night, got booed off stage. And the second night I came back fighting. Like
that really happens?
Booed,
that really happens?
Booed off the stage. Birmingham, England. Booed. Like hard. And I went back to my hotel.
Did you cry?
I cried.
Did you cry?
I cried. It was one of the few times in my life that I have I had a mental like breakdown in my hotel. I was in the tiniest hotel room in the middle of Birmingham, England, and I just broke down and was like, I was about, I forget, 8 years into the business. And I was like, wow, I've made an 8-year mistake. It's like going to medical school and finding out you're not going to be a doctor. And I was like, this has just been a total waste of time. I can't do anything else. I've ruined everything. And I went back the next day. There's more to the story that I'm not going to get into, but I went back the next day with like guns a-blazing, sort of just like, fuck these people, fuck everyone, fuck this. And I went on stage, and it was funny. The first night I went up like, yeah, I'm an American, and they kind of boo. And I would be like, yeah, I'm sorry, and try to justify it. I went back the next night like, I'm American, fuck all of you. fuck all of you. You know, 'cause it was Iraq. It was Iraq wartime, and I was like, you're as complicit as we are. How dare you criticize us? And I just went after them, and I went on the attack instead, like the offensive instead of defensive. And when I got off stage, they were stomping the ground, and I didn't realize I was getting a standing ovation. And they came back and they called me back out. And they kept going, Eddie Ifft, and I came back out and I waved to the crowd and I went back to the green room and they called me out again and I waved to them and they were still standing and stomping the ground. And I just kept going back to the green room. And finally the guy ended the show and he came back and he's like, why wouldn't you encore? And I was like, what do you mean? And he's like, you were supposed to encore. They wanted you to encore. And I go, we don't do that in America. And I was like, I didn't know that's what. He's like, yeah, you basically just insulted the crowd. They loved you and wanted more. And you know, I was like thinking, imagine a band that you're like encoring and they're like, yeah, fuck you guys. And, but it gave me this love then for like, oh, wait, I just made like what a challenge it was to turn this around and go make people laugh in a different country. And then they started sending me like my next gig was probably in Amsterdam or something, and I was like, wow, I'm making people laugh that speak another language. And then they were like, hey, we're sending you to Africa. And I went to Africa and I'm like,
what year was this, Eddie? What year was this?
I started traveling around 2000 2001. Right after 2001 I really started traveling. So about 2000.
So in 2001 you were 7 years into your career?
Yeah, I started in 96 I started. I feel like you're interviewing me again.
Well, I can't help it.
It's my fault. I talk too much. But
I have to do numbers. I'm doing numbers in my head. I'm tripping on the fact that you could be booed off of have the worst night of your career, my words, not yours, and then the best night of your career, back-to-back nights. It makes me you made me want to throw up. Like getting booed off the stage would like I would go home and cry.
Yeah, I did.
Yeah.
And there's a little newspaper article that I keep in my wallet that actually got me back up on stage. And it's a very sentimental thing, and I'm not that kind of guy. But it was an article I read about 9/11, and it was talking about a guy whose wife died in the plane crash. And he said that they went to a comedy club the night before she died, and he goes, she was laughing so hard, tears were coming down her face, and he was glad they had that night before she died. And I was like, shit, that's why I do this. Like I'm kind of Buddhist, and like I try to be about the intention and not the outcome. And I was like, I got to stop thinking about selling TV shows and about being famous and being successful, and think about my job is to make people happy and make people laugh, and that I do a service, that people enjoy what I do, and that's my job. And when I changed that thought process, thanks to reading about that, everything changed. And it was all this like little, and a comedian, I was struggling then, a comedian gave me a book called The Four Agreements that a lot of people have read that I think is great for anything, but it's exceptional for stand-up comedy. And it's, I'm sure everybody's read The Four Agreements. Have you ever read it? Oh my God, it's such a good book. It's like based on like Toltec, which is like this Indian kind of thing. And the Four Agreements are always be honest, never assume anything, always do your best is the final one. Never assume anything, and never take anything personal. Well, I was always taking it personal on stage when the audience didn't like me.
Man,
I was not truly being not being honest on stage, and I needed to be. Like my jokes needed to be about me and the way I was feeling, and stop taking things personal and not assume this audience isn't going to like me or is going to like me. Because I found I'll walk into a whole bunch of like old Jewish women in Boca Raton, Florida, and be like, they're going to fucking hate me, and they're my best crowd ever. Whereas, right, all the cool kids that I'm like, hey, these are my people, and I go in and they hate me. So just never assume anything. And then also a comedian named Godfrey, who's a good friend of mine, told me one time, I watched him with like 3 people. I would always put it on autopilot for like 3 or 5 or 20 people. It was like, you put me in front of 10,000 and I turn it on. And he's like, bro, this is basketball. You got to win the game every night. He's like, you can't half-ass it. He's like, there's 3 people in the audience. You got to be as funny as you are for 10,000 people. And So it was a very big learning lesson, and a comedian handed me that book. A guy named Matt Welcome. Nice pun. Matt Welcome said to me, "Do you read any self-help?" And I go, "Fuck that shit. I've read it all. It doesn't work." He goes, "Well, do you practice it?" And I go, "What do you mean?" He's like, "Well, I could give you a book on basketball. You read it, you going to be able to play basketball?" And I was like, "No." And he goes, "Right." He goes, "But if you practice the things that you read, are you going to get better at basketball?" And I was like, "Yeah." He goes, "So read this book and start practicing." And he's like, "Practice every day." And I was like, wow. And it was a bit of a life turnaround, and it changed. And this was a long walk to get to this. That is why I discovered this kind of love for just performing for people. And I didn't give a shit about Hollywood or television or any. It was just, I'll go anywhere there's a crowd that wants to see me. And I'm also learning about all these different cultures. And so, getting to go to China and getting to go to, I've been to the Middle East probably 5 times. I'm not performing for the troops. I was performing for, the people of the Middle East. And just comedy gives you such a good way of getting to know people and breaking down barriers. Was it with CrossFit that you've gone to so many different countries?
Sorry. No. Wait. One more question, and then,
Sure.
and then I'll answer your question. How old are you?
I am in my upper 40s. I'm on my way. And
are you? I'm 48. Are you older than me?
Yep.
God, you look young. You look like some skater punk. You look like you're 27.
That's my new opening joke. Well, it's not new. I go, I look like a guy that just had his skateboard stolen, and I'm too old to chase the guy that took
it. Yes.
Yeah.
So, what happened? So basically, as a young man, my dad would take me anywhere I wanted to go, and I remember in the 7th or 8th grade, over the summer, he bought this brand new van.
Where'd you grow up?
And
where'd you grow up though?
In the Bay Area, just outside of San Francisco, inland, maybe 30 miles.
Okay.
And in Pleasant Hill, Concord, Walnut Creek.
I used to work
area.
at Tommy T's Comedy Club.
Oh, yes. Yeah. Yes. Never been there, but yeah, the cool kids went there. And so my dad said to me, "Hey, I will take you. I'll take you anywhere you want to go." So I had him take me to AAA, and I got maps of the United States in every state. I don't know if it was pre-iPhone, pre-cell phone. So we had paper maps, and I laid out all these paper maps, and I made a route that went to all the states, all in the continental United States, all 48 states.
Wow.
And my dad, and at the time, my dad's Armenian, hardcore. He's born and raised in Lebanon. So letting kids drive in the 7th grade is not a big deal. So my dad had this van, and we left California, and I sat in the seat next to him, and we took turns driving, and we spent the entire summer, doing everything from the Empire State Building to the Grand Canyon.
Are you that's fascinating. I want to get back to that because that is no other. There's no better education in this world. First of all, second of all, I'm just going to interrupt because you're obviously familiar with Serj Tankian, the lead singer of System of a Down.
Yes.
Because
great hair.
Yeah, great hair. Armenian, grew up in Lebanon. And he's a neighbor of mine, good friend. And
oh, no shit.
Yeah.
Where do you live? I thought you lived in North Carolina.
No, that's where my in-laws are. I live in a place. I call it Malabama. It's
okay.
It's the mountains above. It's the Pat Barber. I live in the Pat Barber of Santa Cruz, of Malibu. I live up in the mountains above.
Have you been to Barber's house?
I was supposed to go. We were interviewing him. I was going to go up to his house, but it was his birthday, and I didn't want to interrupt and everything. But I watch all his videos, and I always talk to him because he's cutting down trees, and I'm like, "You don't cut that tree. Don't cut the oaks down. Cut the pines down." Yeah, because we have the same fire. It's always scary, and but it's like that. I live up in the mountains above Malibu. In fact, I met you one night, sort of briefly, at Pepperdine when Glassman was giving a speech. and it was the night. It was the night that the Malibu fires started, and I watched him speak, and then I was supposed to go talk to him because Mike Anderson, that owns CrossFit Malibu, was like, you should meet Glassman. You two should really do a podcast or something together. And I was like, yeah. I would love to meet him, but we're about to burn down. Like the whole town is going to burn down. And I rushed out of there, and I went to where the fire was that night to go look at it. And I looked at the fire over in Newberry Park and the Woolsey fire. I went to both fires. I looked at them, and I was like, they'll get these. It's like, they're not bad at all. And I went home to my wife, and I said, don't even pack up. I said, we're fine. I said, nothing's going to happen. She wakes me up at 5 a.m. like hitting me, going, we're evacuating.
Was it her call or she got a call?
No, like that's the other thing. They tell you that, the police will stop by and they'll knock on your door. They don't do shit. We have a phrase in Malibu called yo-yo, you're on your own. When the shit goes down, you better be prepared. And it taught me never, ever to count on the government. The government's not going to be there to save you ever.
Right.
And so you better be really, really prepared. And
they're just people, man. There's a point where shit hits the fan so hard that everyone turns into just a regular person. That's like one of the frustrating things when I hear people say, well, the government, and I'll be like, the government?
Yeah.
Like on some level, you have to be like, hey, those are just people.
Yeah.
Our government, like the Australians, our government paid us for the last 3 months to stay home. I'm like, no, motherfucker, you paid yourself.
True.
And you're going to be paying for a while for that shit.
That's true.
College is free. Oh, really? The teachers are going to all teach for free? That's awesome. No, your rich neighbor's going to pay for it, and he's going to fucking hate you for it.
So why did you then start going around the world?
So, I started oh man. So, when someone asks a story and you don't know where to start?
Yeah.
Like, should I start before Jesus or when he was born?
I know. I have that all the time. You're good at being succinct. I ramble for fucking ever.
Basically what happened is I was basically just taking gigs one at a time, whatever would happen. I would just go on Craigslist and be like, oh, hey, I would see like, hey, looking for videographer and to film my kid's bar mitzvah. So I would do that. And I was just a hustler. I was just always doing that shit. And then getting to the beach and spending as much time as the beach as I could. I just wanted to throw a Frisbee and drink beer and look at girls like that. Like that was life.
What's your beach?
I was
what was your beach?
In Santa Barbara.
Okay.
In Santa Barbara. And so basically, or in Santa Cruz, but mostly Santa Barbara, I had a motor home. I just park on friends' lawns or just anywhere near the beach or just, and so basically, but I was a workhorse. Like I really had to be filming and editing. And since the day Final Cut Pro was released, the day it was released, I was a homeless guy who had saved like $8,000, who bought the computer the day it came out, the first laptop ever that you could edit Final Cut Pro. I bought the DVD. I hadn't used a computer in 2 years, and I bought a 1977 Toyota Chinook, and so I could plug the computer into the cigarette lighter. And from that day on, in 2001 or 2002, I've been video editing and filming every single day of my fucking life.
Wow.
And but at one point, I was like, I had, and I never talk about this. I had written this book. It's under the pen name Seymour Buds. Basically, I grew this marijuana plant in my closet at my mom's house at 33, and I took pictures of the plant every single day and wrote down and I didn't even smoke weed. And I took pictures of the plant every single day, and it's actually a crazy story. It's worth extra time. I go to this friend's house. He's a fucking just can't stop smoking weed, right? Like you can't talk to him because he's always smoking weed. Yeah. And he has this big pile of weed on his dresser. And I'm looking at it. I'm like, what's all this weed just laying out for? And he goes, oh, I've already vaped that. And I'm like, what's that? And he's like, it's where you heat it up and smoke comes off. And I go, okay, digging through it, tripping on how it just looks perfect still. And there's a seed in there. I'm like, oh, can I have this seed? And he said, yeah, but it won't grow because it's already been raised the temperature to kill it. I'm like, okay, cool. So I go home and I plant it in a pot and it sprouts. And so then I put a fluorescent light on it and another fluorescent light on it. And next thing I know, I grow this plant. And every single day I take a picture of this plant, and I'm living at my mom's house. And my mom's like, during the flowering phase, and I'm learning how to grow weed. And during the flowering phase, my mom is like, hey man, we have a skunk problem. I'm like, what do you mean? She's like, the whole house smells like shit. And it's this fucking...
Well, wait. I need to stop you there. I want to interrupt.
Yeah.
I want to find what was your motivation for growing this?
I just
Really?
I just do stuff. Yeah. So, and maybe there was something that happened. Maybe I had some harebrained idea that I would grow it and sell it, or like, I don't remember, but I think I just was just like, hey, I saw this. It was a big fucking seed, like for a marijuana seed. It was big and it was all smooth. It looked like I had polished it or sanded it down. You know what I mean? It's like something you'd make in wood shop, but really small, like in the 8th grade, like something that has no function, but just this round, beautiful ball. So I went and got the Miracle Grow. I planted it and I started taking pictures of it every single day. And then then the plant was done growing, and I harvested like 4 ounces of weed off of it. And I'm like, oh, I'm going to take this to Santa Barbara, where I have a friend there, and he'll sell it. And then I can go to the beach every single day and drink beer and party with the money I made from this marijuana plant that I grew in my mom's closet. But I took pictures of it every single day and wrote down what I did. And I took all of those pictures and I made a book basically. And I took the picture in one corner and I put day number 1 in the other corner. And then something I did today. Today I watered it 3 ounces of water. And then when I made all that, I printed all the sheets of paper out and I glued them to pieces of cardboard. And then I punched holes in them and I had a book, How to Grow 4 Ounces of Marijuana. And it was kind of funny. Like I just made just a one-off project, right? And I set it on my desk at my mom's house. Well, then one day I'm reading the paper and there's a guy named Ed Rosenthal who lives in Oakland, California, and he's the largest publisher of marijuana books, blah, blah, blah. So I'm like, okay, well, I'm living at home with my mom, fucking filming bar mitzvahs and just fucking around all day. I'll call this guy and see if he wants my book. And I thought it was like a 1 in a 10 million, right? So I call the guy and he says, yeah, come on over to my house in Oakland. So I go to this huge Victorian house, huge. It's like part house, part publishing empire. And they say, they look at it and they go, we'll take it. They're like, where's the manuscript? I'm like, this is the manuscript. They go, oh, but where's like the computer files? Like no one's ever turned in a manuscript on cardboard.
Yeah.
Like, no, this is the book. This is it. It's done. And so I don't know what started this story, but basically they bought the book and they had me make a second book. And for several years, I made $1,000 a month off of this fucking
That's hilarious.
This cardboard I made. Eventually my mom got me out of the house and I had to grow the weed in my for the second book in my wife's closet.
It's just so funny that you didn't even smoke weed and yet you did this out of like this. That's just so interesting.
I've drawn a common denominator between raising my kids and growing weed recently, and I really enjoy change. One of the most amazing things about living in California is there's so much change. And so like I really get, I guess people on the East Coast see it too, but basically I love watching plants change. It's crazy. Like marijuana grows so fast. So like you go to bed, it's in your closet, you wake up and it's a different plant. You're like, hey, who stole my plant? Put this one here. I mean, it literally grows that fast. And with my kids, it's exactly the same way, but on hyperdrive. Like literally I'm throwing a ball at them and they act like they've never seen a ball. And 10 minutes later, they're throwing it like as hard as they can at me and catching it and diving for it. And I'm like, holy shit, this is crazy.
I remember now how we got into the weed plant was traveling around the world. You did.
Yes.
We are getting to what brought you to traveling to all these different continents and countries.
So I'm in Santa Barbara with this weed I sold, just hanging out, and I'm starting to run low on money. So I go on Craigslist, and there's a company named Vitamin Angels, and they're looking for a videographer. And it's this guy, Howard Schiffer, and basically he's dedicated his life to taking vitamin A to malnourished children around the world. So I go and I have my friend, because I'm in a 32-foot motorhome. So I have my friend drive me in his Jeep Cherokee there. He opens the door. The beer cans fall out of the door. I run upstairs. I do the interview. I come back. We go to the beach and get drunk. And I get a call from this guy, Howard Schiffer, saying, okay, I'm gonna hire you. And I think it was some crazy amount of money. I think I was making like $1,000 a month. And, which is awesome when you're living at home with your mom.
I need somebody like that.
I ended up traveling to 40 countries with Howard.
Wow.
And seeing places that no only I and Howard will ever see. I mean, basically, we went to play Africa in all the worst, poorest, most like I filmed kids just in horrible, horrible situations. And so that took me like to my first, like that, or maybe I'd been to 10 countries before that, but that got me up to like 50 or 60.
Wow.
And it was crazy. The shit I saw, that was like my first real deep expeditions into places like India or Indonesia, just where like stuff that like, if you're an American, you can't even fathom.
Oh, I know. I've been to India and Africa and China and places. Yeah. It's head spinning.
The sheer, when you're like, you know, this, when you're in places where there's 10 million people, you just can't even, you can't even explain it. Like I remember, in India one time we were going to a booth and like driver handed the money to one guy, then he handed it to another guy, then that guy put it in the register, and then he handed the change back to the other guy and he handed the change back. And I'm like, what the fuck is going on here? And the guy's like, dude, we have so many people, like there needs to be jobs. Like one guy's checking the amount of the money, one guy's making sure that it's clean, and one guy puts it away. And I went to this one slum in India where, and I use the word I shouldn't even call it a slum. But I went to this one section in India and there were like 3 million people there because their slums are cleaner than our, the Indian slums I went to, even though it's like just all mud huts made of dung and shit, they're still cleaner than 90% of our fucking cities here in the United States.
I don't know. I don't know. I watched a dog eat shit out of a guy's asshole in India one time. Yeah.
So I believe it. That's called bathing.
Yeah, it was so gross.
Don't be so.
It was so gross.
Don't be so closed-minded.
My wife was like, "Oh my God," and I'm like, "Look at this! You have to watch this." And she's like, "No, this is disgusting." And I'm like, "I have never seen anything like this in my life. That dog is eating the shit as it's coming out, and he's like a kid putting his mouth up to the soft serve machine at a TCBY yogurt place. Like he was just like, and she was like, "This is the most disgusting thing." It was awesome.
So your wife traveled with you when you did comedy?
It's funny. Before the kids,
or it's not funny.
Before the kids, every good place she wanted to go to. And when they booked me in India, it came out of the blue one day. I get this call. My agent's like, "Hey, they want you in India. Comedy Central's opening their channel in India, and they want you to perform." And I was like, "What? I don't want to go to India." And this is like when I was over it. And I was like, he's like, "Well, give him a number." And I was like, "All right." So I gave him a number, and he's like, "Pack your bags." And I was like, "Ah." And my wife goes, "They're going to pay you that much?" I'm like, "Yeah." She's like, "Well, get a couple first class tickets and 5-star." So I was like, "Okay, can I get this? Can I get?" And they're like, yeah. So she goes, like, when I'm booked in Hawaii, she always shows up. When I'm in Australia, she's always there. When I'm in Toledo, Ohio, you're going to need to do this one by yourself. So she only goes to like the good shit. But she won't come with me.
Did you try to give her the talk like, "Hey, this isn't fun"?
Yeah. I get really lonely. I go to Australia every year for like 3 months, and I get really lonely, so I take them with me. I love having them there. It gets expensive, you know, kids flying them, and I just see it go into my budget, and people are like, "Oh, you know, I'm like, you think you make a lot of money. You see this big number, and then it just starts just getting gnawed away by everyone. Producer here, producer there, this fee and this hotel and this, and the next thing you know, you're standing there with like $1,000 going, "Did I just do 80 gigs for $1,000? Like, why? What happened?" And they're like, "Well, you didn't sell in that one town."
Do you UFC, Eddie?
What's that? I missed that question.
Do you watch UFC?
Yeah, a little bit, not a lot.
Do you watch UFC?
Yeah, I watch a little bit.
Sometimes there'll be these fighters and they make like $20,000 or even $50,000. And I'm like, how the fuck do you support yourself? If you do 3 fights a year, if you're lucky, and you made $50,000 a fight, that's $150,000, and $50,000 of it the government takes, right?
Yeah. And
then $30,000 goes to rent to live in California. And now you have $70,000 left, and all your training apparatus and shit takes the other 35. And then you pay rent to live in a house, and now you're down to 12. And I'm just like, how the fuck does someone do?
It's why
that?
Why I have to hustle so much. And people think, oh, you live in Malibu and you have this and that. And it's like, you don't get it. Like everybody's trying to dip into my thing. Like record companies are taking 30% here or 50% here. And my producers, my promoters, I just got a big deal that's going through right now. And the number was so awesome. But then when we looked at managers, lawyers, oh, they didn't color correct this. Oh, they're going to have to do the audio on this. Oh, they're going to have to. I just kept telling my wife, I'm like, stop planning, stop buying, because that money's getting smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller. And it's tough. It's like, I don't know how anybody does it, because there have been tours that I've done where I thought I'm coming home with hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars by the amount of tickets I sold. And then they, wire me the money and send me the reconciliation. And I'm like, oh my God, I feel like I just got hit in the stomach with one of those, American Gladiator poles. Like that hurt so badly. Like, why do I even do this after everybody rapes me? And there are times, where I do little shit on my own, where it's just like a cash check where I just show up, like cashing it. And I'm just like, why don't I just do all this and just get away from everybody else? Because there's a guy named Doug Stanhope who's one of my favorite comedians in the world. And Doug sells all his own tickets from like brown paper tickets so that no one can dip in. And he just calls he's got his fan base, and he calls bars, and he's like, I'm coming, 500 people are going to show up. Like you'll get up 500 people drinking in your place. And they're like, awesome. And he's like, I'm taking all of the tickets. And they're like, okay. And he just does it, and they show up, and he's already done it online, where they've bought the ticket. He's got a guest list, and they just come in, and he's got their money. And it's just such a cut out all the bullshit. And I wish I could do it.
Sounds so clean. And
he lives in the middle of. He's an awesome comedian, but he lives in Bisbee, Arizona, and has his own, like, he's like practically the mayor of the town. He's built a compound. He bought like a city block of like homes and built this, like, he's like a Hunter S. Thompson kind of guy. And I tell everybody to watch him, listen to him. He's so funny. And just such an interesting guy.
Yeah, I know the name. I don't know if I've heard like Stern, or I've heard the name.
Yeah,
I feel like I hear the
Stern
name
a
regular.
lot. I was in Hawaii once performing. I get a phone call from him. He's like, hey, I'm in Hawaii. I'm over at Roseanne's house on Maui. You have a show tonight in Oahu, right? I'm like, yeah. He's like, I'm going to fly over. You want a day drink with us? I got to keep this going. I was like, okay, let's do it. But yeah, here we go. I've been talking about myself again. People criticize that. You'll see that in the iTunes.
Yeah, mine too.
They're like,
mine too.
But I watch yours, and you're really good at asking questions and listening. I'm terrible at that.
Only recently, Eddie. Like, so basically when I was doing the CrossFit podcast, I just fucking stepped on everyone. And actually, I think that's a better me. When I just step on everyone. But since the cancel culture started and I've been doing my own stuff, I a little bit crawled back into my hole a little bit. But being unemployed has really set me free.
Yeah.
Like that's really, like, I've in a couple times, especially on my Instagram, I'll just come out guns blazing. Like, hey, this is the fucking truth. Fuck you.
So
like, 2 + 2 is 4. I don't care what your gender says or what your God says. 2 + 2 is 4, and dick.
Okay, there might be some stuff you don't want to talk about. You don't have to. I'm curious. Were you let go when they got rid of CrossFit Media? Okay. Really?
No. Do it. I'm game.
Were you let go when CrossFit Media went away, or were you let go when Greg was let go?
So basically what happened at CrossFit is 2 or 3 years ago, Greg brought in this complete fucking horrible CEO. Yeah. And he basically, in my opinion, my humble opinion, he destroyed the company. And one of the things he did is he fired my entire team. It was a giant team. And
with Rory and
yeah, Rory actually survived.
did he?
So,
I thought he was removed too.
Well, sort of. Rory was so what happened was most of the team was slaughtered, and they didn't. What's crazy is they didn't like. So I ran that team for years, and the team was hugely successful on a terribly in every metric that you want to put, and Rory was actually in the games department, which was a little outside of what I did. There was some overlap because obviously we did a lot of media around the games, the documentaries and whatnot, but he was more in the broadcast. And then when everyone was fired, they shifted Rory to work basically in the gym with the underserved community, what Greg called the underserved community, which was basically just old and fat people, which I shouldn't say only. It's an amazing program. And my mom still works out there today. It's one of the fucking remnants of what's left of CrossFit. And it's an amazing class actually. And Rory was one of the people with Jenny Lau that spearheaded that and got that going. And that was also kind of underneath. Greg gave me the order to start that class, and him and Nicole Carroll and I got that thing off the ground. And then Rory was eventually switched from what's kind of funny. It would be like taking this guy who is in front of them at the games for the game, and then all of them putting him in the gym. But that was kind of one of the unique things about CrossFit. Anyone could do everything, could do anything. And that was one of the most unique things about working at CrossFit is every single person there snorted the CrossFit Coke, right? So just imagine everyone there. Imagine working at McDonald's and everyone's like, this is the best hamburger that was ever made.
That's probably,
it was nuts working there.
That's what made me not like it. Like I loved CrossFit, but like
I get that.
But I've always been a 1 foot in, 1 foot out. Everything I do, I can't.
Does your wife know that?
Yeah, it's funny. It's probably the only thing I'm totally committed to.
Ooh, nice save.
No,
nice
it's true though. I have thought about that because I've never been able to really commit to anything except for her, and I even joke that I wouldn't be. Like all my jokes are that I'm not committed to her, but I really am. It's like I bought it hook, line, and sinker and thought it was amazing. CrossFit. However, I had to be my cynical self and try to find what was wrong with it and why you can't fully do it. Because I'm always like, I don't want to be the guy that gets duped. I don't want to be the guy like I did with religion.
Right.
Or I don't want to be that guy. So when I saw everybody being so like, rah, 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 this is the fucking most amazing thing, I was like, something's going on here. Something's wrong. I've got to find out what's wrong. And it's funny, all my complaints and all my criticisms now I kind of take back because, like when Glassman, when the whole thing went down with Glassman, at first I was like, whoa, this is crazy. Like this is, and I'd felt like I can give you all my opinions, but I'm not going to, because there was like, I've been doing the show for 10 years or 8 years or whatever it is, and I have been all through it. But then after the dust settled, I was like, wait a minute. I saw that letter someone wrote about Glassman not being a racist, and I was like, that's true. That's true. And I've seen how many times I've been taken out of context and how often people have accused me of things that I am definitely not. And, I've been... with my comedy, I've been called sexist, misogynistic, transphobe, every single thing you can be called that I know I'm not. And so I was like, wow, I see how they did that to him, and he's not that. And
it was so bad, Eddie. It was worse. It was worse than you can even like. It was so fucking bad, and there were so many good people in the community who were pieces of shit. Well,
I've seen how when a narrative
and it will come back around. Those of you who were throwing stones, like it will come back around. Not because anyone's going to, or not because anyone's going to do anything bad to you, but you're going to see that cancel culture doesn't give a fuck.
There's no doubt about that.
They eat their fucking own.
Yeah,
it's a cannibalistic, disgusting culture. And you will see that if you hang with that group, eventually you're going to look down and they're going to be gnawing on your leg. And so you think you climbed to the top. You think you were being holier than thou, but hold tight.
There's no holier than thou in it. It's complete and total opportunism. And I've believed that since day one. I have a ton of friends that have been canceled out of comedy. Like they no longer have a career. I know some of them. I've been involved in some big stories, and haven't been on the bad end. I got in a huge fight with Stormy Daniels. That wasn't the big story, but I saw how the narrative took off. I told her to stay in her lane, and what I meant was keep doing porn, don't do comedy. Like comedy, just because you can play the piano doesn't mean you should play with the symphony. Stop performing in stand-up comedy clubs, just as I told Jeremy Piven. But I said stay in your lane. So
is that from Jeremy Piven? Which one is he from? Belle Biv DeVoe or what?
Entourage.
Okay, I didn't get into that show.
But he does stand up, and my thing is like if you're not in love with it and it's not your art form, then go sign autographs at the mall. Like don't do. So that was my argument. They took it as that I told a woman to stay in her lane, and because the liberals were
Jesus,
yeah. It became this white man telling a woman what to do. And the narrative, I didn't even have a chance. And when I saw it going, I was like, I'm not even going to fight it. I'm just going to be funny. So every response I wrote back was funny.
Smart.
And I was just like, yeah, well, I like the caveman days. I think we should grab you by your hair and drag you back to a cave and blah, blah, blah. And I just tried to be as absurd as possible to combat it. Where I heard a guy on Rogan say the way to combat cancel culture is when somebody accuses you of something you're not, to accuse them of, when it's a lie, just lie about them. So if somebody says to you, you're sexist, go, you're a pedophile. And they're like, what? And the louder they yell, the louder you yell. And you just start accusing them of a total lie because that's what they're doing to you. And you do it to them and they will shut up then. Because
is that how Trump became so successful?
I think, look, that guy's a genius in so many ways. I think he's a moron, but I think when it comes to manipulating the media, he's the smartest man that's ever lived. Maybe not.
I mean, nothing ever stuck. Like he would just scream louder about the next thing.
Well, I read in Woodward's book that he talks about, how does he put it? Something about like elevating the message through controversy. And he gets his, but that's a little bit like Goebbels or the whole propaganda thing. If you tell a lie big enough, long enough, people eventually believe it. Like this thing about the fraud in the election, it's all a giant lie. But he's got 77% of the Republican community believing that there was fraud in the election. And I know people are listening to me right now. There's no fraud. Just listen to the experts.
Do you want them to say that there's two idiots? Here's this, just like the same thing about COVID kills old people.
Yeah, well, I would. You mean like
it's a correlate. Of course, it kills old people. One, they're closer to death, and two, they've been drinking Coca-Cola for 30 years. But it doesn't kill old people. It does not kill healthy old people.
No,
it's not. Old people is not a factor. It's just the fact that, and the news keeps saying that, and it's just like, so I'm just saying, like, people are going to call you an idiot for saying what you said about there wasn't fraud in the election. I just wanted to jump in there and let people call me an idiot too. I'm trying to take some of the attention from you.
Sure, I get it, and I'm
buying something that's true and crazy.
This is why I tell jokes, because when I try to talk seriously, I make no sense, and people are like, "You're an idiot." But I think in my head, I'm like, "I have it, I understand it," and then when I try to say it, I'm like, "Just tell jokes, like shut up." But I forget what I was getting to now.
We were getting about just basically name calling. Like if someone calls you a pedophile, call them a racist. If they call you a racist, call them a sexist.
So if you yell back at them, and they all of a sudden go from being on the offensive to now they're on the defensive, and then they shut up because they're like, oh, this doesn't feel good. And it felt good to be the bully. But as soon as I start getting bullied, this happened. It's so weird. And
what if your voice isn't loud enough? So like the New York Times gave me a couple of paragraphs just destroying me, and they took everything out of context over an interview I did with Stacey Tovar. The irony is after I did a little research, I saw that piece of shit reporter got that from Reddit. She even listened to the podcast herself.
Wait. I want you to stop. I want you to repeat what you just said, because there was a little the Wi-Fi, it wasn't going over well, and I want, this is very important. So the reporter said what?
This piece of shit reporter at the New York Times who did the article took all of these pieces out of us. I had Stacey Tovar on the CrossFit podcast, and we're talking about her menstrual cycle and about its relevance to her competing and what clothes she wears and just all this stuff about her menstrual cycle, which I believe she brought up. But anyway, and it was a topic that came up quite a bit when you speak to professional athletes who are women, and they presented it in the New York Times article like I'm a creepy piece of shit. Now, maybe I am a creepy piece of shit, but I wasn't being a creepy piece of shit talking about menstrual cycles just because I'm comfortable about it, because I was raised by two women and I'm curious about elite performance. Don't fucking like drag pieces out of I mean, it was so fucking bad. And I had over on my guest after I was fired from CrossFit, and what's one of the first topics she brings up is about how easy it was to get pregnant because her menstrual cycle is normal. And it's like, but I would never be able to yell as loud as the New York Times. Like, I wanted to blast this bitch. I wanted to I found her on Instagram, the author. She is such like, oh, fuck. I don't want to suck my own dick, but I have so much to fucking share with the world and offer to the world about being healthy. And that is like I really enjoy doing that. And for her to fucking go after me when I've done way more good for the world than that fucking cunt, that really, that jerks and all taking stuff out of context. You can ask, I was the guy at CrossFit Inc. where you're at a fucking party and I'm asleep in bed and you need to be walk home, you call me because you know I'm way too much of a pussy to ever try anything on you. I mean, it's just fucking nuts. It's crazy. I live with Greg for years. The shit they say about him too is like, there's a lot of things you can say about Greg, but like one of his biggest faults was that he was always rooting for the underdog to a fault. Like it would, like the guy because he had polio, he has polio, and he had it as a kid, and it was the worst experience a 5-year-old kid or a 3-year-old kid or a 7-year-old kid could possibly have, because people thought that if they touched him, they'd fucking get that shit. It was fucking horrible for him. His whole life was like, oh, that's pretty good for a kid with polio. And it took me 15 years to piece that story together, that's what basically we're seeing from him. And so he was always looking out for the gay guy, always looking out for the black guy, always looking out like for the underdog, to a fault where it was like uncomfortable. It's like, Greg, okay, so like chill, man. And they killed their Jesus. And his only goal was to sell the message of not sell like as in self. Let me choose a different word. His only goal at all costs was to show optimized human performance and health. Oh shit, you froze. Your eyes are closed, or you're not listening. His only message was to optimize human performance and health. And now he's gone, and this corporation owns CrossFit. These fucking people killed their fucking Jesus. And now they got it's fucking nuts to me. And I'm not defending Greg. I don't want to sound like I'm defending Greg. Everyone has their faults, they're not perfect. But if you wanted health and optimization of human performance, you just lost it. It's gone forever. He's, like you said, he's sipping Mai Tais and fucking, it'll never be what it was because that one man guarded it. That's another thing when people say it's about the community, they're so fucking out of their mind. It's nothing to do with the community. It was this one guy's fucking thing that he babysat, and the babysitter is fucking gone, and we got a new one. The community has a new one. Berkshire or whoever owns CrossFit. I don't know who owns it actually.
Why are you not doing a documentary about this?
I mean, with the 100 terabytes of footage I have from 15 years.
Yeah.
Because I got to keep my severance. I'm just not, I don't have energy for it. I don't have energy for it. I'm saving it for every time I come on your podcast. So you'll keep inviting me back.
No, but it's almost the story that needs to be told to society. I mean, because about how we eat our own and about how we're all flawed individuals. I always say that in Hollywood, when I see the comedians taking down other comedians, I'm like, glass houses, what are you doing? Why are you throwing stones right now? Like, you're not, because that person is going to get knocked off and no longer be touring and getting TV shows, doesn't mean you're moving up a peg. It does not mean that someone else is going to replace you because they're more talented than you. And I've always, like, at first I used to be totally for affirmative action and blah, 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 and this and that. And then I got to the point where I was like, you know, as soon as it started, like, affecting me and I started looking at it, I was like, you know, I don't see them making the Lakers put 3 white guys on the team. Or I don't, you know, like, how come some things it's like, oh, we're going to go performance based on this, but other things we're
Don't get us canceled, Eddie. Careful. Don't get us canceled.
That's why you do what I do. I can't get canceled. No one can cancel it when you make it.
And I'm unemployed.
When you make it yourself, they can't cancel you. That's why I always get weirded out about, like, I have this sale going through right now and I'm like, oh no, how much can they pick apart and how much, like, it just vanillas everything and it ruins everything by having to kowtow to these corporate, you know, people that everybody's being a hypocrite and nobody believes in this shit, but everybody plays the game and it's just such bullshit. But I talk about it in my new special, which is coming out, called Sweet Home Alabama. I talk about the Me Too.
Where will I see it? Where will I see that?
It is going to be in America. It'll probably be on Amazon. There's still a chance it's going to be on Netflix, but it's coming out in probably early March. But I talk about the Me Too thing, about coming up in Hollywood, and I'm not a good-looking dude, but I was just, you know, in comedy, I'm like, I was like kind of a young boy. I had so many women do horrific, not horrific. I loved every minute of it. That's the joke. I loved the attention of women. And they were older, more powerful women that were like, hey, fuck me and I'll put you on the show. And I was like, what? You know, like, when? And
unacceptable.
But how there's this double standard and that it's power and that there's so much more to it, and that look, we could talk. I have talked about this ad nauseum because comedians, it happened to us so much. But what I saw was early on with the cancel culture was when the internet started becoming prevalent in our business, the bullied became the bullies. The people that have been bullied for so long became more powerful through their written word. And they started to go back and bully the way they had always been bullied. And it's what I've said about affirmative action and everything. You don't fight discrimination with discrimination. You just make people more mad and you anger people. It's retributive justice. And retributive justice, you want to see retributive justice? Look at gangs. That's what happens. You kill my brother, I kill your brother. You kill his brother, he kills your brother. Yeah, and it just keeps going down the line. What we have to do is learn from it and try to stop it then and not go. But what our cancel culture is you'll cancel me, I'll cancel you. My friend will cancel you, then you'll and it just keeps going down until we all just knock each other out. And it's just so sad and disgusting because we are all flawed individuals. Now, has there been some good stuff? Yes. Are women treated better because of the Me Too movement? Yeah, I think they are. I think there is a you know, if I look back at some of the stuff that went on with women, horrific. However, I've also been in green rooms where women have said and done and been part of a culture that people on the outside would look at and be like, oh my God, this is horrific. And the women would be like, that was the best time of my life. You know, like, I loved having comedians call me names and I was calling them names and we talked about this and I'd show my tit and blah, blah, blah. Like, so every single situation is different and they need to be treated like that. Matt Damon said that. He was like, there's a scale of sexual harassment to rape. Like there's a scale. It's like a and he said like what Louis C.K. did is not the same as what Harvey Weinstein did. And as soon as he said that, they were like, Matt Damon, asshole, end of the world, blah blah blah. So what do you do? I mean, it's
By the way, that's one of the big accusations because then it lets everyone. So the people would say stuff about Greg, about maybe he was inappropriate with women, and right away, since Harvey Weinstein and Jeffrey Epstein are in the news, everyone starts projecting that onto Greg. I never witnessed even the slightest fucking anything criminal from the man ever.
Well, I would say the most.
And so when I hear that shit, I just want to fucking like, hey, just say it. Just fucking say it. There's some piece of shit people out there who told stories about him, but they made it just vague enough that they could be misinterpreted, or they had to be interpreted. And like, hey, call him out. What did you see? Don't be a fucking pussy, or shut the fuck up.
I would say the most the most damning thing.
Sorry.
The most damning thing though of all to Greg, which I feel like was the nail in his coffin, was the Andy Stump
Floyd 19.
No.
Oh, yeah. Andy was that's yeah. Oh, I don't even know if I want to get started on that. That's exactly it. Everything in there was so vague, out of fucking context. And by the way, what would happen? Oh, man.
But what I want to know is what would
I'll stop right there. I will tell you this: people who are throwing the most stones have the most skeletons. And just because you start the podcast with, "Oh my God, I'm so sorry," or "I should have done this," no, shut the fuck up, you fucking pussy. And you fucking if you start a story with saying like, "I'm not the kind of person who talks shit," and then you talk shit for 2 hours, like, fuck you.
Well, I think that
anyone who believes anything that he said in that podcast needs to have their fucking brain checked. They need to evaluate the whole thing.
But I think that was the motivating fact. I mean, I think the train had already left the station because of the world we were living in at the time and a lot of the overreaction and everything. But Andy, you look at Navy SEAL, military, loyal, blah, blah, blah. He had this, I mean, you'd think Greg would have the respect of the community because he created it. But Andy had this like, well, we've got to trust this guy and what he's saying because he's that kind of guy.
But he didn't, but he didn't say anything. But
it also seemed, why would he jump in here?
By the way, I liked Andy a lot working with him, but he's an extremely, extremely fucking intense individual. But I really enjoyed him. But me personally, like I could only, like, I would get full. I could get filled. He could be really, really fucking intense. And I'm a really fucking intense person, but he can get really fucking intense. And I liked him, but it was completely fucked what he did.
My question though,
fucked.
What would motivate a guy like Andy to go out there and do that unless he really...
Because he has an axe. No, because he has an axe to grind. Because he wants followers. Because he whatever the reason. But like I can tell you 1,000. I have 1,000 Andy Stump stories that I want to tell you because because of the thousands, because of what that podcast he gave out. But that's not enough to tell them. But if I did, I mean, we all do about each other. It was just crazy that it was just crazy. Only he knows his true motivation, but it wasn't altruistic. It wasn't for like whatever. I haven't heard I only listened to it once, and it was like the day it came out. But he made it seem like he was standing up for women everywhere or some shit. If I remember, I'm not buying that for a fucking second.
Well, I'll tell you. So I can equate it to my world of comedy, and I see people come out of the woodwork. When anyone dies, every comedian starts posting their RIPs on Instagram and Twitter and how they knew them and their experience with the person. It might have been they met Rodney Dangerfield once, or they met Mitch Hedberg one time, and they tell I've done it. I'm guilty. But mine's a little bit like pay respect to the person. Like, hey, this guy was great, and this was my one, I want to share with the world this story. But I feel like with cancel culture, there is this, it's the talking point. Everybody wants relevance from it. And it is a point of reference, and everybody starts going, well, I have this, or I have that, or this is how I can be featured. Like, it's my turn to talk at the party. And so I see what you're saying, like the attention. I always look at these Navy SEAL guys as they're like low profile, supposedly, and then there's the guys that go and write the books about everything you're not supposed to talk about. But when Andy did it, I thought, what does he have to gain from it other than, other than he really felt that this was wrong. And now I can see what you're saying. I can see the other side. This is why I'm Mr. Moderate. I can see the side of it that this guy,
like, just say, did you see Greg rape someone? Did you see who were these people in the car? Like, just say it. Like, if you're like, he left it so vague that anyone could paint it any way. But he started by saying, I know I should have said something. Like, dude, it's so, it wasn't for him. I was fucking like, and here's another thing. I don't know, like, the dude lives in fucking Montana with like no job, or whatever the fuck he does up there. Like, he can do and say whatever he wants, right? His whole identity is built around how many extra followers he could put on. He probably put on 50,000 followers. Probably, I bet you if we were to look at his stats, it's his most listened to like podcast if you combine the first 100 before it. I mean,
yeah. Well, let me.
It's not a good thing what he did. It's not a nice thing. And here's the thing. Let's say everything he said was true in the worst possible way. Like that story about how there was a girl in the car and he said, I hope your husband becomes a hero, Wad. Let's say that's true. Did Andy put on the other side of the scale how much damage it does to the health of the world by CrossFit going down and not being able to spread its message, and all the people out there with type 2 diabetes and who are dialysis and who are going to die from heart disease? Like, did he put the scale out at all? Or was it just completely so Andy could grind an axe?
Well,
when Greg Glassman offended with his rhetoric. I mean, it's just when
that example was used, I was saying everything's under a magnifying glass. I have said much worse things in my life, much worse things. I remember a guy.
And by the way, Greg's one of the funniest people you'll ever meet too. He is so funny. He's so quick-witted. He's like a comedian of the like he should be doing stand-up. He is fucking hilarious and sharp. And I didn't hear Andy mention that.
Well,
I mean, it's just like,
no, what I'm talking about when he said that, and that was pointed, and people were like, can you believe he said that to that woman? And I said, hold on. Everything is taken out of context. I said, one day,
I want to tell you so much about that too, but man, that is so out of context. That story is so out of context.
I had a friend come out of the closet and that I never knew was gay and tell me he was gay and blah, blah, blah. And, and like, he's a friend and I think the guy's great and love the guy and everything. And after he told me, and he was so sincere, I was like, come on, faggot, let's go. And out of context, people would be like, oh my God, that's so horrific that you said that. But he and I just laughed so hard that I said that to him then. And it was, there's so much to like time, place, context, inflection, how, as a comedian, if you wrote down everything I say and printed it on the New York Times, you'd be like, oh my God, this is horrific, cancel. But then you see the way I massage it with someone and tell it, and the sarcasm and the this and the that some people take it differently. I mean, that was one of those things that's like, it's so funny because I feel like Greg was his own demise a bit because he kind of killed his own disciples. And when you talk about the CEO thing, that was the mistake. The mistake was bringing in the CEO, making those decisions, cutting back the media, cutting back the games, all the guys that got.
He should have just made Dave the leader of the company. Yes. Yeah. Yes, I agree with you.
The identity that all of these people that were just gym rats got from, like, all of a sudden had this giant fame that is hard to manage, hard to understand, hard to psychologically deal with. They got this fame. All of a sudden, the games is minimalized. That's all taken away from them. That's their bread and butter. He made enemies not knowing he was making enemies. And that is something, my argument against Greg is that he was not aware of his surroundings, because I feel like he had kind of removed himself a little bit from he had moved on to other things while not taking care of his baby. Like, he had moved on to, well, we're going to take this thing and I'm going to promote health and, well, around the world and try to make this bigger and better. But his disciples were like, hey, what about us? And they turned on him. And that's, when they turned on him.
Well said. Well said.
And that was, and in retrospect, I think a lot of them.
That was the thing. He had burnt all his loyalty. He had burnt all his loyalty equity. And so when there was a fire in the front yard that could have been put out by the neighbors all turned their back on him. And the fire fucking ravaged his house. So you're right.
It's funny.
Right
Castro was saying that Glassman would make a great guest on Rogan, and I was like, oh my god, there wouldn't be a better guest in this world to tell the story of what happened. I mean, I guess he can't. There's probably an NDA with the money he made and everything. But
I think that it would get contentious between them.
I don't. Oh, in some ways, yes. In some ways, yes. But I also think that Rogan's very fair. And I think Rogan would point out the places where he made mistakes, but he would also say, I think once the dust settled, I think a lot of the people that jumped on Glassman are regretting it now and going, wow, this guy wasn't. Look, I think a lot of people do like this new CEO and think he's a good person to run the company. But I think a lot of them are going,
Yeah, nothing I'm saying suggests otherwise, by the way.
No.
But it's not Greg Glassman.
No,
it's a totally different. It's Berkshire.
How'd you meet him?
Who, Greg?
Yeah.
Sent him an email telling him I could make videos for him for $500,000 a year.
Did you really?
Yeah.
Did you say $500,000?
Hey, could you? Yeah. Want to hear the story?
Yes.
Could you hold on? Could I pee?
Yeah, go pee.
Okay.
Do. We're gonna take a little break while Sevan pees because I haven't interviewed him at all, and I feel like I've just been pontificating my opinions of everything, but we're figuring out some stuff. We're gonna get to the bottom of what happened to CrossFit. This is a very long episode. I apologize if you don't like it. I like the long ones. I feel like there's too much to talk about. Ernie, you can edit all this shit out while he's peeing. So much interesting stuff that I still want to ask him. Okay.
I love you. Hi.
I didn't even get. I want to section this off so that we can talk about almost. I never do this, but I want to have an agenda. I want to talk about Glassman, how you guys met, how you got involved in it, and then also your children, how you do what you do with them, because it's pretty awesome. That could be a whole other podcast. That's what I thought this podcast was going to be, because I'm so interested in that stuff. But I'm really interested in.
Do you like me, Eddie?
You know what? First of all, you look like Mark Maron. Has anyone ever told you that?
No, but I never have a mustache. I only grew this mustache because I'm trying to really get out of my comfort zone. I'm trying to make my life I'm trying to really get out of my comfort zone.
Okay, you look just like you just look like Mark. You look just like Mark Maron. You are not, again. You're like Castro. You're not the guy I thought you were by watching your videos.
Mark Maron.
Yeah, Maron.
Oh shit! Yeah. People have said that to me before.
Yeah.
You
look so much like Mark Maron. You're not the guy I thought you were.
I hope he has a nice body.
No, he doesn't.
Oh, damn.
So wait, so you found Greg, you sent him an email. Why? Where did you know of him? How did you know of it?
So basically I was working on these shows for ESPN. There was a security guard there. It was during some downtime. I asked him, hey, how do you get so buff? He tells me he does this thing called CrossFit. He starts telling me about it. I'm like, you fucking liar.
You
have a beautiful body.
What year is this?
2006, early 2006. I'm like, you already have the most beautiful body in the world. Why are you telling me to do 100 pull-ups? Like you don't have to lie.
Yeah.
you know? And then a couple weeks later, my friend who I was working on the show with is like, hey dude, that security guard wasn't lying. I go, what do you mean? He goes, I went to that website CrossFit and there's like a ton of workouts with 100 pull-ups in them. I'm like, are you fucking kidding me? So we start looking at that. And that summer of 2006, I parked my motorhome on
Pause for a second. Pause for a second. What was your
yes.
athletic background?
Yes. Zero. I was the guy in high school who got picked after girls.
Okay.
Like, you know what I mean? Like when they're picking the high school teams, like all the guys to get picked and some girls and then some more girls and then me.
Okay.
Like I was the guy at the presidential fitness exam who couldn't do a pull-up. I had to put my chin, I had to do the hang with the chicks, you know? And like I had none of that. Like it would be the thing where like I would go out with my friends and we, you know, be in high school and everyone's like, hey, we're going to climb up onto that dumpster and just drink a 12-pack. And I was the kid at the bottom who would drink it at the bottom because I was the only kid who couldn't climb up to the dumpster. And my friends were cool and shit. Like they tried to pull me up or boost me up, but I was like, I couldn't even be out like that.
So
it was, and I was okay with it. I learned early, like, hey, it's better. I better just be funny.
So the lesson to anybody listening, if you're a young kid out there, learn how to do a muscle up so you can go underage drink.
Yes. So you can get onto the train shelves and you don't have to be down below looking for the cops the whole time. So, so then that summer, I was, my friend, Carrie Peterson and I went to, we parked my motorhome on my friend's lawn, Adam Muntz's lawn, Santa Barbara, Isla Vista, and we just sat there and drank beer and fucking went to the beach every day. But we started doing CrossFit at the rec center there at the UC Santa Barbara Rec Center. And, there would be these things like snatches and cleans and jerks and muscle ups and all this shit. And we didn't know what they were. So we needed to look them up and look for videos. And their video selection was like stuff that was shot on a flip phone, 480, like little tiny cubes and just fucked up stuff. Right. So, and I was the filmmaker and I told Carrie at the time, I said, hey, why don't you write this guy an email and say, hey, that we'll make videos for him. So they responded to us. And we, they actually flew us out there, and my friend Carrie didn't even make videos at the time. And we flew out there and I said, hey, for $467,000, I'll make this amount of videos for you, blah, 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 blah. I laid out this whole proposal for them. And, they responded with, well, we'll send you to an L1 for seminar. And I went to that seminar and my fucking, like, my little peanut, my little baby brain was exploded. They basically would say shit to me like I started, like, they're like, run 400 meters as fast as you can. And I'm like, holy shit, I can't remember the last time I ran 400 meters as fast as I can. And here I am 34 years old. What the fuck? So the seminar blew my mind. And then for the next year, I basically worked for free. I just traveled around the United States and they just paid for my fucking travel and, you know, lodging, and I made as much L1 content as I could for them. Mm-hmm. And to this day, I bet you there's no 3 people combined, including Greg, that have made more content or contributed more content to CrossFit on either the game side, the core content. Like there was a time where the joke, it was Sevan.com. I mean, I turned in a video basically every single day for a couple of years.
Wow.
Between 2007, 8, 9. Yeah. I mean, I became obsessed. And I wanted to learn, and I was surrounded by just fucking amazing people. You know, when you're surrounded by Cosby, Nicole Carroll, Castro, Glassman, you know, Eva Claire Sinkowski, just these Kelly Starrett, like there's this endless pool of water and just all these sponges trying to get as much water as they can.
I dream about getting involved in something or creating something like that. That the thing I envision, because I've done like projects, I've made like TV shows and stuff, that everybody that gets involved is as passionate and talented as all you guys were. Like I am always amazed by how CrossFit drew in. It was like a magnet for all these like overachievers, and they all came to this thing and everybody wanted to participate. It was like there was almost like this weird democracy, and there wasn't this power struggle to be the top of it or this. Everybody was just getting their little chunk of it. And that is where I give, like I always have to be critical of Greg because I just never want to be a Kool-Aid drinker or be that guy that like fell under his spell. But that's where I will give him so much credit, that he attracted all these super talented people that were able to believe in something so much that it happens in politics a lot. I guess it happens in church. So you can see it happen in shitty things, but I like think CrossFit was a really good thing. And it's just like how these people are leaders and how they get people to do this. Like, so that to me, I'm amazed at how good you guys were and how like the fact that you were so passionate and able to like do it for no money. Like you were like, I just believe in this and I want to be.
I lived at home with my, sorry, the guy's here to teach jiu-jitsu for my kids and the dogs are going absolutely apeshit. I lived at home with my mom basically at the time. Like I abandoned everything and just made vid free. And I was learning the whole time. Imagine I went to 30 level 1 seminars in a row, right? So
did you ever feel like,
sponge.
you know, there's the jokes about CrossFit being a cult, and I've made that comment 1,000 times. Did you ever feel like at any point, like, did I get roped into something that I am part of, like something that is kind of cultish because of the way people were being attracted to, like, you know, because you look at like people that join Scientology or join whatever cult is out there, the Moonies or whatever it is. They don't know. They just think it's the best thing in the whole world, and they want to promote it and work for it and do whatever for it. They're not in there going, this is a cult. This is da-da-da-da. Did you ever think, hey, maybe I've just been brainwashed, or maybe like, why do I believe in this so strongly? Or what did that ever come across your mind?
Hey, is the dog too loud?
No.
No, I did this interview with John Wellborn, and he basically was telling me that it was kind of cool. He said the parts of a cult are they dress the same, they think the same, they eat the same, they do the same movement patterns, blah, blah, blah. And under those criteria, sure, I could see why you might think it's kind of a cult. The thing that about CrossFit is that it didn't matter whether you were hardcore Nazi or hardcore BLM or hardcore right or hardcore left. It transcended all of that. Mm-hmm. It was basically a group of people who realized that they really, really wanted to be better. And you quickly realize that when you were around them. So if it was a guy who did rabbit sculptures, he was really into doing rabbit sculptures, and he wanted to do CrossFit to make himself the best possible so he could make the best rabbit sculptures. And if it was a guy who wanted to, be a lawyer, he did CrossFit because he wanted to be the best lawyer ever. He wanted to, be healthy and just be the best. And it was just a group of people who were moving incrementally to make themselves better. What was interesting about CrossFit is and I think you've touched on this, is if I look at you as a person, is your last name Ifft?
Yep.
Eddie Ifft. I've said it like 1,000 times last night. I'm like, is it really Ifft? That's a great name. So Eddie, if I looked at you and I just saw your skin on the outside and I thought that was you, right? But really there's probably 95% of you is inside your skin. That is the way really CrossFit is. Once you cross that threshold into it, it's nothing. You never see the skin again. It's all just that fucking the heart and the liver and the blood. It's all that shit on the inside, but you don't ever see that. And until you go into it. Right. So it doesn't matter where like if you were in a park and you were doing a CrossFit workout and another CrossFitter came over and saw you were wearing nanos and doing thrusters, they'd come over and talk to you. Right. Yeah. I mean, it's a cult, but it's not, there was, I've never been in a cult, so I don't know what a cult would be like. Yeah. But there was never any like, donate this money to the church or feel pressure to be like this. And if there was pressure to be like this, like if me and you went out and 2 other CrossFitters went out and we were eating sandwiches, yeah, I wouldn't eat my bread in front of you guys. Like I would feel this peer pressure. I'm exaggerating a little bit, but
no, that's true. I get it.
There is this, we keep each other honest. You know what I mean? The same. So
Okay, so if you move on in life, let's say
Mhm.
your next job takes you into a whole different world outside of physical
I'm
fitness.
I'm unemployable. I'm unemployable. I'm a comedian. I'm unemployable.
Let's say hypothetically you offered
Okay.
the Zumba, no, not Zumba World, something, I don't know, it's child development. You start working
Peloton. I don't own a Peloton, but I would love to own a Peloton bike.
yeah, they well, all my friends, I'm on a group thread with my high school friends, and they all talk about like the hot chicks on there. They're like, "Oh, I worked out with Emily
I really
tonight."
want one.
Anyway, let's say you start working in child development and you're making movies about child development, and 10 years from now, I feel like you're still always going to be like, it's almost like a religion though. Like you will always see yourself as a CrossFitter. You will always refer to your education in CrossFit, and that, so like, I'm not going to compare it to a cult. I'm going to compare it to a religion. And to me, religion is a bit cultish, if not really cultish. But I'm not saying.
How about an educational institution? Can we compromise? Can I say I went to Yale?
Interesting.
You slipped up. You kind of gave me the idea. You mentioned always that you learn. You said some word, and I'm like, oh yes. It's more like an education.
It's a good,
because I'm raising my kids under those fundamentals of everything I learned in CrossFit.
But the same thing happens in religion. The same thing happens in religion.
Sure.
You raise your children. Look, I was raised as a Catholic with Catholic morals and Catholic ethics and everything, and I had to kind of pick and choose which one. There's some that are really good that I'm still glad that I have, and then there's some that I'm like, that's batshit crazy. So I see it as that.
I guess maybe I don't care what it's called.
Right.
But it feels more like an education. Like, I realize that struggle causes adaptation. I realize that eating is the foundation of the pyramid of health, things like that. Those are things like it's mostly an education for myself so that I raise my kid right, like a hierarchy of like things that are important.
Well, I think that's why CrossFit became so big. I think it came around at the right time. As the internet exploded, it was a way of people that like to, everybody started feeling like all the information in the world is there, and I don't have enough time to do all these things. So how can I condense it into the best information to make me the best person possible? And CrossFit
well said.
CrossFit was there to go, hey, we've got a lot of these answers, and we have done through this giant community, we've hacked it all for you. Because that's what led me onto it. I was like, what is the ideal workout for me to do that I'm going to spend the least amount of time and put in this kind of effort and get the most optimum results? And so the efficiency in it is what I loved. I was like, might be the German in me that I was like, efficiency. And that's what attracted me to it. And then the elitism. And I think that was a lot too, that people just started going, wait, there was so much elitism to it. I don't know what the future holds for it. I don't know what's going to happen. I think it's changed the world, especially, physical fitness and everything. I still think you should do a documentary about kind of the history of it, because hopefully the history doesn't get lost. And I feel like people that get into CrossFit now have no idea what happened or how this thing happened. And it was a phenomenon. And so you've got the Buttery Brothers doing their shows, and they're great, the games, movies that they do. But there has to be there's a story here. There's a real story. I mean, there's a Netflix movie about
show me the money.
I say that too all the time. But it goes back to when I was in that hotel room and I was crying over that newspaper article, and it was, it's about the intention, not the outcome. And the intention being that my daughter's trying to sneak in the room. The intention being there's a story that needs to be told. I know you're like,
I don't have, and when I say show me the money, let me explain it like this. I don't have the integrity that Dave Castro has. What I have is, on one side, I have this dream life that I'm living with my kids, and to pull me away from it, I mean,
I know the feeling. I know the feeling.
Fucking like even to do this podcast, like I have trouble committing to anything if my kids aren't involved.
I know.
Like I just
good. That's a good transition. Let's get into it. How old are they? How old are you? How old are they?
I'm 48. My kids they just turned 4. I have twins that just turned 4, and I have a 6-year-old who just turned 6.
Okay, so 6 and 2 4. I have
all boys that look like girls.
That's hilarious because my daughter was watching them and she's like, "Is that a girl or is that?" And we have our son has long hair too. My 1.5-year-old, we're just letting it go. I have a 6-year-old. She's turning 6 this week, and then I have a 1.5-year-old. So old dad. Do you feel like now? For those of you who don't know, go to the Instagram and just watch. It's amazing what you've got your kids doing. I am trying to do the same, but I do it I feel like this should be a whole other podcast because I honestly want to learn from you, but also my biggest question for you is it looks like you figured it out, and I'm trying to find the chinks in it. Like, are you failing in any aspect?
Yes.
Like, and where I feel like the possibility. Do you feel like you push them too hard?
Absolutely not.
Okay, because that's important to me because I want I knew these kids growing up that were like trophy athlete kids that crack eventually. And I want my kids to be happy, healthy, and strong and smart, but I also want them to achieve. I want them to, because I believe with achievement, like I achieved in stand-up comedy that got me this whole amazing world. Like I have gotten to meet the greatest people in the world, learn the greatest things, have the greatest experiences, and it's all because I worked hard and excelled at one thing, or did well. I shouldn't say excelled. And so I want my kids to do that. I want them to excel, but at the same point, no one really pushed me. But I have this probably little bit of me that's like, I could have been better. I could have been this if I got pushed. I was a pretty good track athlete, and I'm like, I didn't realize how good I could have been if I had been pushed. And I was pushing myself the whole time, and the negative thoughts kept me from going on further. So what I'm wondering is, like, do you, there's no fear of that you're pushing them too hard?
No. So basically, to go back to your first question, no, I don't have it figured out. I'm completely faking it. Like, everything is faking it and fortuitous. And I just fake it until I make it, right? So like I go in the garage and I pick up a ball and like, okay, I'm like, hey, I'm going to throw the ball. We're going to play catch 10 times. And then from there, it just turns into whatever. And sometimes I catch myself trying to control it too much. And then sometimes I'm like, hey, I just got to let it go. And like, this has turned into throwing the ball at me as hard as they can. So, and if I tell them to go into the garage and I try to show this on my Instagram and they say no, like I give them breathing room. I say, okay, let's go in 20 minutes. Or what 99% what I do is I just open the garage door and I go out there, and they love being with me. So eventually they come out there. They just want to but everything is like fortuitous. I didn't pick jiu-jitsu or tennis or these things because I have this master plan. It was like, hey, there's a tennis clinic down the street from my house and it's close and it's only $24 and it's 3 days a week. And so now he does and his mom likes tennis, and it's just kind of builds on that, right? I didn't get him in striking because I wanted to learn striking or because I wanted to be a fighter, but one of the jiu-jitsu coaches where he does jiu-jitsu teaches striking. The reason why I got them into ballet was because as a kid, I always thought Baryshnikov was the shit. I just love his outfits. I love those wife beaters, and my mom liked them, and I wanted to like everything my mom liked. But going back, a kid is going to form an identity. This is my opinion. I'll say it like it's fact, but if someone wants to tell me I'm wrong, I'm happy to be wrong. Everyone's forming an identity, and I think your identity is formed very, very quickly. So you could be the young Jewish boy with a giant nose who's good at the violin, who girls think is cute, but has a deformed toe and doesn't like the way he smells. And so you're building this identity. I'm Armenian, by the way. I'm not Jewish. I do a lot of Jewish humor now, or I think I do because my wife's Jewish and I think it's fun, and my kids. So, and then you reach a point in life where you can realize your happiness isn't in that identity, and hopefully you transcend that and you blossom into an awakened, walking, living, enlightened soul. And then you can use that identity as your toolbox instead of something you need to defend. So your first 20 years of your life or 30 years of your life or however long it takes you to become enlightened, you have to defend your identity, but you still have to develop one. And so then you defend it with your ego, and you defend it, and you explain why jiu-jitsu is better than karate, and you get upset when your friend scratches your car, and you do all these things to defend that identity, but that identity still has to be built. So I realized as a kid, I had this massive capacity. Like I thought it was so weird when you went to college and you only took 3 classes a day. Like what? I was taking 7 classes in high school and that still wasn't shit. Like I had this massive capacity and I should have been pushed. So what I'm doing is I'm really keeping my kids. I offer them really strict boundaries and crazy follow. And with that, you make kids you like. And once you have kids you like, you want to spend every second with them. And why do you like? It's like having a dog. You know, like you see those people with the border collie and it doesn't bite anyone and it always follows the guy around and he rides his bike or rides a skateboard. He never needs a leash. And you're like, fuck, how does he have that amazing dog? I want a dog like that.
I have that dog. So So I created that dog. I specifically got an Australian cattle dog because I watched them in Australia. I saw the way they behaved. And the next thing I know, my dog's jumping in my truck window, sitting beside me, going everywhere with me, riding a skateboard, paddling out when I surf, running the hills with me. She's 13 years old now, but like she's slowing down a bit, you know, had to have knee replacement. But she is...
those are the kids you want. Those are the kids you want. Because then when you're not around, that's a happy child. So my kids can go completely ballistic in my yard because they know that they better not fucking throw a rock towards the house. The rule is you throw rocks away from. If you don't, I'm going to come out there and wreak holy hell on your fucking world. You're going to start doing like burpees, or you're going to come inside, or like there's going to be some natural consequence. And I'm going to be so fucking strict about it. You better not touch the chocolate milk when we're in line at Starbucks, because if you do, we're going to leave right away. Every single time. So like if you touch it, because you know the rule is don't touch it.
So a friend told me once.
And then when we go into Starbucks, you can have all the fun you want because you already know the rules. You can't touch the chocolate milk, but you can make fun of the people behind me. You can sock me in the cock and balls. You know, you're allowed to say smoke weed every day. You can do, there's all these things you can do, but you better not fucking like start touching shit. You better say yes, thank you, please, or you're fucked.
So that's interesting.
The boundaries.
A friend of mine, just a random civilian friend, said to me before I had kids, he said, it's very simple. He said, a lot of love, a lot of discipline. You can't have one.
Crazy boundaries.
He said,
yes.
A lot of love, a lot of discipline. He said, if you
can't
just
keep my hands off my kids.
Yeah. He said, if you just have one
endless affection
and you don't have the other, it's not going to work. And he goes, you got to have them both. So my issue is then where I would say my sometimes problems are that my wife and I differ sometimes. Whereas I am more strict. She is more spoiling and more like when they complain and go, I whine or nag, I don't want to do this. She gives in, where I'm like, there's no giving in. Like and she is, well, I read this and I read this and I read this and it says to do this. And I'm like, I just have a feeling, you know, like mine comes from intuition. I don't do the research. It's funny. I research everything in my life, but I don't research children. I feel like raising children, it has to be done with intuition and with experience, your own experience. Like what worked with you and your parents and what didn't work. Don't do the things that didn't work and do the things that worked.
There's no homeostasis. You're either teaching your kids something good or you're teaching them something bad. There's never, like, if they whine and whine and whine and you finally give in, you just let them and gets them. Now, if you're like, hey, you could never have TV ever on Wednesday night, ever, and that's the boundary, you have to keep it at 100% unless there's something else you want to teach them. And so they come to you and they're like, there's a show on aquatic life that's going extinct. And I'm seriously interested in that. Even if you know they're completely pulling shit over your fucking, you know, like they're lying to you, like they don't really give a shit about that. They're just trying to get the TV on, but you appreciated that move, bend.
Yeah.
That's where you have to be flexible. Bend. Like my kid will say that, well, when can I have something? No, you can't eat that because there's sugar in it. Yeah, because there's added sugar in it. And like you didn't do anything to earn that. And like, I don't want to hear you talk about it for the next 6 months. Well, what would I have to do to get that? Well, what do you mean? What would you have to do? And I have the discussion with them. And if they come up with some fucking goal that they want to get sugar, and I like the whole idea, not only that they're going for a goal, but that they came up with an innovative way to manipulate me. Like I
respect that.
It used to be if they ran to the end of the point that was a mile and back, they could get their own like Lara bar or something, right? And after they did that like 5 times, they're like, hey, we just ran to the point and back. That's 2 miles. And I'll be like, yeah. They're like, we want our own Lara bar. I'm like, no, that's only like good for like the first 5 times. Now you got to do something else, like, and they get it. Like they get it. Yeah. They get it. They're like, all right, we get it.
It just seems like you're giving them such a good foundation. I forget who I talked to years ago on this podcast, and they said, teach your kids swimming for cardiovascular, and because it's just important in life, and then also gymnastics. So I started my daughter in gymnastics and swimming, and she's a really good swimmer. Gymnastics, it's getting better. I mean, she's just right away, I knew she wasn't going to be a gymnast, and I was like, I'm not going to push that, but I want her to have all the fundamental skills. She's an incredible athlete. She's got my running. She's got the speed, and she's going to be a good runner, but I don't want to push her. No one pushed me. And I, made it to college on a scholarship. How do I, so I don't want to push her. Like, I'm just so afraid that I'll be that guy and that she's going to resent it later, or he, the little boy. And so I'm like, how do I do this? Like, and I figured you were the kind of guy that probably did all the, like, researched it and figured it out. And I'm like,
my wife schools me.
Mm-hmm.
My wife and my mom just school me on raising kids, and then I take all the credit for it publicly. I mean, it really is like my wife and what's great is even if she schools me, like oftentimes I'll be a better practitioner than her, but like she basically teaches me how to respect the kids, how to keep boundaries with them, like all this stuff. And then I just implement that. People always ask, how do you align? We do differ. Two things. So pushing your kid. So I took my kid to jiu-jitsu, and he would only do the warm up, and he wouldn't do it's 15 minutes of warm up, and it's then 15 minutes of technique. And the technique, you have to like wrestle with other kids and like touch grown men and shit. And he never wanted to do that. So for 3 months, 3 days a week, I would drive him a half hour there, half hour back. He would only do the 15-minute warm up, but then I would make him sit on the mat, and I wouldn't let him think. No drama. He'd be like, okay, I'm done. I'm not touching those other people. And I'd be like, oh, totally cool. You just do you, but you got to sit on them. Since we drove all the way out here, we're just going to sit and watch the rest of the class. No drama. I gave it no energy other than you had to sit there and base on the mat. You had to leave your gi on. And after 3 months, he started doing it.
Wow.
And after 2 years, he got his gray belt.
Wow.
And now my kid at 6 years old, fuck jiu-jitsu, fuck martial arts, any of that shit. But at 6 years old, my kid has had interaction with these grown-ass professional alpha male men 3 days a week for 2 years, and he earned something from them. He fucking earned the next belt.
Wow.
And it was fucking hard.
Does he still?
I didn't earn shit until 34.
I know. Yeah.
I mean,
does he still?
It's fucking crazy.
But he still does it too.
Yes. He's the because of COVID, the coach is here right now in the yeah.
I'll give you. I'll give you a funny story just like that, where the advice you.
But I didn't push him, but I pushed him. Do you know what I mean? Like yeah, the rule is we're coming here. I can bring you to the water. You don't have to. But I was committed to 3 months, where I think most parents wouldn't. Sorry to interrupt you, Eddie. I don't think most parents would have followed through. They'd been like, fuck it. It's a waste of money. Fuck it. I'm not doing the drive. Fuck it. I'm like, nah. I view raising a kid as my personal science experiment. He's my fucking Sistine Chapel. He is going to be my, like, all three of them are going to, and I joke, by the way, that the twins we just had the twins for training partners for Avi, but they probably love that. But they're my experiment. I always hear people talk about legacy. Thought that legacy is just stupid to me. Like, who gives a fuck about legacy? But I guess my kids are my legacy, whether I want them to be or not.
Well, I don't know. I don't know how to say this. I'm worried, not worried. I want my kids
sound
to
like my mom.
No, I want my kids to like what they like. There's so many times like if it were up to me, my daughter would surf and ski, and we would go surfing and skiing every day, and she would be And I make jokes that I had kids so that I had people to go ski surfing with, and
I love it.
But the truth is, I want her to be a good. I started her skateboarding at a young age and tried to teach her to be a goofy foot, because I am a goofy foot and I like to surf lefts all day long. In California, every wave is a right, except for like 3 waves. Every friend of mine was like, "What are you doing? You're a dick. Why would you do that to your daughter?" And I was like, "Because I want her to go surfing with me. I want her to be like, Dad, come on, let's go surf this wave. And then we can like share that together." And they're like, "But you're keeping," and I was like, "You're right. And I felt guilty about it.
Wait, what's the dick part about it though? Tell me what the dick
Because
part is.
I was forcing her to be a goofy foot, and she'd be a better surfer on lefts than she would rights. And when California is all made up of rights, and she'd have more opportunity to surf and be a better surfer by surfing rights. And so
your parents fucked up by not forcing you to surf right. Is that what you're saying?
Yes,
And
exactly.
then we got to go talk to your friends about that.
Exactly. So then I kind of like let things fall where they were, and I found out she's not a goofy foot. Like, she just started riding the skateboard the other way, and she started going regular foot, and I was like, oh God, like a little part of me was like, well, I've lost her. I'm going to be on the other side of the peak from her waving to her, but I have to let her go. I have to let her do what she wants to do and what's best for her. And so that was hard, because I was like, oh, this is, I want to make her but my dad did that to me. My dad wanted me to be football and golf. My dad was big in football, big in golf. And I didn't do either of those. And I did when I was younger, and then I just pulled away from it. And I pulled away from both of them as I got older. I was like, I don't want to have anything to do with this shit. So with the kids, it's like I don't want to push them too hard into the things that I like, that they then go, I don't want to do that shit at all. I want them to still like have fun in it, and so I have that struggle of like, when I'm like, no, you need to be here, and you need to finish this, and you need to get done with. There's that it tears me apart. Like, when is the point where it's too much, and when do you back off?
For my own personal experience, like the mistakes my mom made, and I don't want to take any digs at my mom, because I had the greatest mom. It's up there in the pantheon of moms, but having your kid do something half-assed, I think, is like pointless. So like, I went to clarinet lessons once a week for 4 years, and I don't know how to play the clarinet. Like, fuck that. Like, my favorite part about going to clarinet lessons is my mom would eat a Babe Ruth bar.
One second.
Yeah.
Are you taking Izzy to Katie's now? She's leaving now? Tell her to come up and say goodbye. Yeah, that's okay. Tell her to come say goodbye.
Oh, you do like me. You avoided answering the question before. You do like me. You're having your daughter come say bye to you.
No, she's going away for the night. She's going to her aunt's house, and I just want to say goodbye to her before she leaves. The clarinet lessons.
Strike 2, ladies and gentlemen. Strike 2. I'll get it out of them.
I'm not going to say it because you want me to.
God damn it. So, if I'm going to and another thing is I don't have that, like, I'm not interested in him being a skateboarder. I'm not interested in him being a professional fighter. I'm not interested in him. Like, I joke around. I think it'd be cool if he was a rapper. But I'm not. I just trying to build an identity, and I kind of feel like I've retired from, like, I've checked out of Sevan Mattosian. Like, I've checked out of my own identity almost completely, and maybe it's going to be a rude awakening for me when he grows up and moves out of the house. But like, my whole thing is just to water this plant and watch it grow. But if I saw that like I have the plant in this room under this window and it's just like it's not getting enough sun, I would move it. But for the most part, I want to do follow through and make sure that everything he's doing, he's incrementally growing on. So like he has piano lessons 1 day a week, but I wish he would do it. But my mom comes over and supplements it. But he has 1 day, he's been doing it for 6 months, and I'm so tempted to stop it because I'm just not seeing
The growth.
the plant's not flourishing in that window. And I know that's my fault. So am I wasting his time? So at that point, I start looking at the big picture though. I start looking at the fact that the teacher is really good and that interaction is really good. And are my boys happy in the class? Yes. Going back to the boundaries thing, my kids are crazy happy. Like everyone who meets them is like, holy shit, these kids are so fucking happy. And I really think that's all about boundaries and affection.
Let me ask you this, when it comes to boundaries and affection, where are you with TV and them? Screen.
So Friday night they get to pick a movie after the sun goes down, and Saturday they get to pick a movie after the sun goes down. About 3 or 4 weeks ago, that we were at the skate park and he wanted to do this. He was going to drop in and he was scared and he was scared and he was scared. And he had done this drop 5 times. And I go, hey, I'll let you have a movie night tonight if you just drop in. And he just dropped in. I was like, Jesus, that was easy.
I do that too. And I feel guilty about it that I'm like using this reward. If you've ever read Robert Lustig's book about, the dopamine release and the reward and everything, it's like, oh geez, we're training like with sugar and screens. Like that is my daughter's favorite thing in the world. Sweets and son too. Sweets and TV, like screen time. And so those are
how old's your daughter again?
She's 6. She'll be 6 this week.
I've been so strict with screens. Like I don't even see them as screens. I almost feel weird saying that word, but like my kids are never allowed to hold my phone. Their rules, their life is so fucking structured. So they get to see the iPad at jiu-jitsu while the other kids are going after their warm up. Like, so do you see what I did there? So we get there.
You're making everyone that's listening to this, every parent feels like a piece of shit right now because I tried everything. Like we followed the rule about no screens until 2 years old. Like it's bad for brain development. But even now, 1.5, I still let my little one every once in a while. Like I'll be changing his diaper and he's throwing a tantrum, and I'm like, look at the puppies, and I'll just throw a screen up to because I don't want to get shit all over me, and it's one of those things that it's just.
Do you want to talk about some of the bad shit I do?
Yeah.
So the other day at the park, my kids are. I speak to my kids in a way that I don't show the public. I am fucking wild around my kids. And we listen to a ton of crazy rap music. And my kids know so many bad words and they know how to use them appropriately. And they sing so many bad words. The other day, my boys are in their girls' capris with their wife beaters on and their Argyle tops and their long foofy hair. And they're the sweetest, happiest little boys. And I hear some other kid go, Mommy, those boys are using naughty words. And I'm like, oh shit.
You got busted.
Because I'll play just Eminem soundtracks over and over and over. And they love Dr. Dre and they love Snoop Dogg and they love James Taylor too. And they, and the Counting Crows and all that shit. But like, I just let everything fly.
Yeah.
So do I protect them from like sexual content. I don't want to sexualize them.
Yeah.
But like, I don't care if kids next to me at the park are smoking weed. I don't care if I'm like, my kids have this new saying, don't say it. So I'll be like, hey, stop being it. And I'm about to say an asshole, like to your brother. And they go, don't say it. Like I'm just, and I don't want to show that because I don't necessarily condone that behavior, but I'm okay with it.
Right.
And I guess each parent has to figure that out. Like, I don't think I'm hurting. Maybe I'm not setting them up for success, but I'm hurting them. Like giving them Oreo cookies is hurting your kids.
Yeah.
Like I know that's hurting your kids.
Yeah.
So,
well, I struggle. I struggle with the outside world, thinking like when it comes to like in-laws and relatives and everything, feeding my kids, and I've had fights with them where, you know, they all think I'm crazy the way I eat and the way I live, and so they'll give my kid a cookie, and I'll go, "What are you doing?" And they're like, "What?" I'm like, "Why are you doing that?" And they're like, "Oh, calm down." And I'm like, "No." I'm like, they're like, "What's the big deal?" I'm like, "Would you give them heroin?" And they're like, "Well, of course not, but that's different." I'm like, "No, it's not. Like, sugar's killing more people than heroin is." And they're like, "You're crazy." You know, like and so then when I'm not around, it's constant, you know, they're doing that stuff with them. So then daddy becomes the bad guy because daddy won't do the fun stuff where the relative will, you know, she's going to her aunt's tonight, and I can only imagine what's going to happen there. And, you know,
yeah,
you know,
party.
And that drives me mad, you know,
goldfish and chocolate milk.
Yeah. And I've had to kind of let go a little.
Hey, yeah, you got to let go of that. I don't fuck with the grandparents at all. Mm-hmm. I used to for like the first year. And then it's a battle that I just don't do.
Yeah.
Some kid offered Avi a stick of gum the other day. He's 6 years old at jiu-jitsu, and he looked at me, and I shook my head no. And if he would have taken it, I would have probably just bit down on the inside of my cheek. And he said, "No, I can't have it." And then afterwards, he got in the car and he goes, "How come and he's never chewed gum. He's 6 years old. And he goes, "Why have I never chewed gum? Like, why aren't you letting me chew gum?" I go, "Hey, dude, when you're 12, you can have your own fucking pack of gum. But like, you're 6, dude. Save it. Like, it's got sugar. Don't you want to be strong and fast and lean and mean?" And he goes, yeah. And he starts getting on there like, "Yeah, dude, there's a whole lifetime." I'm like, "Does his father me?" And I go, "Do I have any tattoos?" He goes, "No." I go, "When I'm 70, I'm just covering my shit. I'm saving it." You know? And he's like, "Oh, yeah. And, you know, the food thing is crazy, but to illustrate how powerful it is, at 100 days of Avi riding a skateboard, I took him to the Point in Santa Cruz. It's the Point Market, owned by Hassan, and it's and I said, "Hey, you and your brothers get ice cream," and they fucking like froze, and they go, "What?" And I go, "Yeah, your mom and I are so proud of you. You skateboarded 100 days in a row without missing a day." His fucking head exploded. And as he finishes the last bite of ice cream, he's all, "When I get to 200, do I get another ice cream?" I said, "You're damn fucking right." Just like that. And like, that's how powerful sugar is.
I
know,
and we're on day so 150,
powerful. And this motherfucker is pumped. He's pumped. He's 50 days away from ice cream.
You're so much more strict than mine would be. Like, you do it for a week. 1 week, you get ice cream. Not 100 days. We had the issue with our daughter. We put her. I'll try to make this short. We put her in swimming. I grew up. I was an ocean lifeguard. I've done triathlon. Like, swimming's very important to me. I surf, and we live around water. And I just wanted my kids to be safe and also good swimmers. So right away, at like a year and a half, we put her in infant swim rescue. 1.5. I don't know if it was the best thing in the world. I think it kind of might have caused a little bit of trauma. You know, that's where they like basically throw them in, flip them, blah, blah, blah.
Oh, yeah.
Teach them to float. We did that with her. So then as we went to swimming instructors after her, it progressively got worse. Like, she knew basically how to swim at like 1.5 years old. And then it got to like almost like a fear of the water a bit. And we were going different coach to different coach to different coach till finally my friends David and Martina Paradiso that own Paradiso CrossFit said, "Go to this guy in Baldwin Hills. He's this black guy that is like the swim whisperer with the children." And Baldwin Hills is called Black Hollywood, and it's or Black Beverly Hills. I forget what it's called, but it's this very wealthy black area.
You're making me uncomfortable. We
all are, but we'll get through it. So I take my kid there, and
you're a good dad. I could tell.
So we are the only white family there, me and my daughter, and I've got all the rules. My wife has told me, she's like, she signed her up, and it's like, bring your kid in, have 2 towels. You're going to do this. You're going to fill out the paperwork, or this paperwork's filled out. Then you do this. Then you sit by the side. Each kid does their thing. Then the guy will nod to you. You bring your child over to him. He takes her into the middle of the pool. He's going to dunk her twice. He's going to push her to the side. Then then they're going to give the kid back to you. He's going to go through all the kids again. And then he's going to do a second round. That's the first day. So I meet the woman. I think it's his wife, everything. So we hand her the paperwork. She's like, "You know what to do?" I'm like, "I know everything." I do it. My daughter's fine. She's there. We are the only white family there. As soon as I hand my daughter to him, he takes her out of the middle of the pool, and she looks at me with tears in her eyes, and she goes, Daddy, like, what are you doing? You've just handed me to this man that I don't know, and he's now taken me to the middle of a pool. And I started to feel bad, and he told her, he whispers, he's like Billy Ocean. He was like, okay, now I'm going to dunk you, Izzy, and you're going to be fine. He's like, oop, there you go, and that worked. He's like, now I'm going to do it again. Are you okay? It worked. Okay, now I'm going to push you to the side of the pool, and you're going to hide. So it works. Everything works. He goes, now you can go sit on the side. Now get out and go to your dad. So she comes and she sits on my lap, and everything's good. And they're like, you're going to go round 2 after he goes through all the kids again. And she's just, watch this kid, watch this. She's having the time of her life. I go to he gives me the nod to give her for round 2. I pick her up, and she turns into the Tasmanian devil. And she starts flailing, screaming, going, no, punching, scratching. She breaks out of my hands, runs to get out of the yard, tries to pull open the fence, and she was like 3 at the time, 3.5, tries to get out where she's going to run out into the street. I grab her, she gets behind me, goes under their grill, hides under their like rusty grill. Then I look at the woman like, what do I do? She goes, get her in the pool. So I pick her up. She grabs their gutter on the side of their wall and pulls their gutter off the wall. Like she's just using like Hulk strength, and she is squirming, and I'm looking at the woman like, and she's like, get her in the pool. And I've almost got her to the pool, and she's still fighting. And the woman looks at me and she goes, it's over. And I go, what? She goes, it's over. And she goes, he doesn't want her. And I'm like, what? She's like, and I read on the website that 99% of the kids pass this, and they only have like a 1% like where kids fell out of it. And I'm like, okay,
wait, you got rejected by the teacher? He doesn't want
her. So I go like this. I go, okay, so just like go home and then come back tomorrow. And she goes, no, don't ever come back. And I go,
I love it.
She goes, this looks like a child.
Racist.
She goes, this looks like a child that gets what she wants all the time. And I was like, woo, holy shit. So I go out to the car. I'm like, come on, Izzy, we're leaving. And she's like so excited, like so happy that she won. So we're going out to the car, and I'm fucking mad. I'm so mad. And I'd promised her ice cream after this. And we don't give her ice cream a lot, but I had promised ice cream because this was like almost like a traumatic situation. We get in the car, and I'm like, Izzy, you're in big trouble. And I'd never yelled at her, ever. I was like, Mommy and Daddy work hard, so we give you nice things, and we want you to be safe. We don't let you cross the street by yourself because you get hit by a car. And we want you to learn how to swim so that you're always safe around water. And you were bad in there. You were naughty. You didn't listen. And she goes, so I guess I'm not getting ice cream.
Yes.
And I go,
yes.
yeah, you're not getting ice cream. So she passes out, like out of all the trauma and everything. She just goes right to sleep. I call my buddy Bobby, Crazy Bobby, who's on this show all the time. And I told him exactly what happened. And he goes, get her to a pool right now. He's like, do not let her beat you. She just beat you. And he goes, if you let her beat you, she will always beat you. So I call my wife on the way home, tell her what happened. And I said, get her over to the Buckman's pool. She's going in. I go, if I have to teach her, she's going in. She's not waiting this. And she goes,
I love it.
So she calls the Buckmans. Their pool's too cold. I said, find another class. So she finds this other class. I go, she's going tomorrow. She's going to class tomorrow. I said, she's not winning. She's going to learn how to swim if she has to go every day for the rest of her life. And my wife finds this class up in Malibu, and I had to leave to go do a gig. So I had to fly out in the morning. My wife sends me videos. My daughter's swimming up and down the pool, back and forth. I was like, what the fuck happened? And my wife's like, I don't know. It's probably my touch. But there was this like, don't give up. Don't let this kid beat you.
Aren't you stoked you did that? Yeah.
So happy.
Yeah.
So happy. But, and I feel like that a lot of times with everything. But then there's the voice over me going, leave them alone. Don't force them. Don't, let them.
Well, the truth is you didn't necessarily force her. It's just kind of how you tell yourself the story or where you draw the line. You just brought the horse back to water again, but you didn't force it to drink.
No.
And yeah, it's awesome. I love that story. That I would have struggled with that. I have lost battles before. The kid kicking and screaming and pulling, like that's always so great when it's someone else's kid. But like when it's your kid, you're just like, I mean, oh man, God bless Avi. He's like a big kid, but times where hey, we've been here 3 hours, let's go, and he'll just throw his skateboard down and scream as loud as he can, like "Fuck you, I ain't leaving." And I'm like, what? like just totally catch me off guard. But that's cool. You didn't get her the ice cream. That shit's hard to do. One time the boys were getting out of the car and we were riding skateboards like about a mile. And then whenever we get to this place, I always pull out a bar, break it into 3 pieces and give them some water, and it's their break. And they were fooling around. And I go, there's going to be consequences for this fooling around and you guys not helping me get ready. And when we got to the end, they're like, where's the bar? I'm like, that's the consequence. No bar today. And they never fooled around again when we got out of the car. So, I mean, that shit works.
I love
and like, you can't break either. You can't be like 3 hours later, be like, you guys have really turned it around. Here's the bar.
Yeah. My daughter's queen.
Because you're trying to.
Queen negotiator.
Because you're trying to make kids that you like. The whole point of this is just to make kids that you like. I want to reemphasize that because you want to be Eddie Iff's caller or Eddie Iff's healer, because that dog got to go everywhere because he was a good dog, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And if you're the bad dog that bites, guess what? You stay at home, and when the guests come over, you go in the fucking garage.
It's very true.
It's not good for anyone.
This shows you how much I like you. This is one of the longest podcasts we've ever done. One of the longest podcasts. Yep.
That's great because Dave just sent me the fucking nastiest fucking note yesterday. Hey, don't, because he knows I fucking freak out and get so nervous and I'm just want to impress you or anyone I talk to. And he's like, hey, he told me that I was like one of his best guests with the most comments. Don't worry. Like basically you the bar's been set so high you don't even have to strive to
Hilarious.
get there.
It did. People,
you motherfucker.
I think I changed people's perspective of Dave Castro because I've watched a lot of podcasts with him, and he always seems preoccupied. He's looking at his phone. He's checking things. He's not looking at the person. He doesn't want to be there, and I got the impression that I don't want to say that's a fault of his that he's not locked in. But it just seems that he's a fucking busy dude that has other shit to do, and that he's done this out of like graciousness. Like, I'll do this, but then it's like I have to focus on my kids. When my kids want to do something, I got to put my phone down and focus on what I'm doing with them because it's not. So I was like, how am I going to get Dave's attention? How do I keep him locked in? And he was nice from the start, and I think a lot of it is because I'm not a threat to anyone. I'm not a fitness star. I'm not in the fitness business.
I wouldn't say you're not a threat. I felt threatened by you.
Really?
But I watched your videos before. Yeah. You're so sharp and fast and funny and charming. I'm watching these videos of you yesterday. I'm like, I'm fucked.
See, I really like people, and I really like talking to people. Mm-hmm. And so I want to have a great conversation with you. That's obvious. When I was a lifeguard, we sat with different guards every day in Stone Harbor, New Jersey, and there were like 20 beaches, and you got assigned every day who you were going to sit with. And I was always people were happy to sit with me because they knew I could talk to them for 8 hours. And just have these awesome conversations because no matter, I would either learn from you or I'd teach you or just share. And so I had people that I preferred to sit with and people I didn't prefer to sit with. And that's kind of what this podcast is. It's like, let's sit and let's talk. And so I really look forward to talking to people if they have something to say. And like you're interesting. Dave was so interesting because I didn't expect that from Dave. I didn't expect him to be such a cool guy. And so it was just, but there have been a lot of CrossFitters that I talk to that I'm just like, oh my God, like all you've done in your life is just work out. That's it. That's all you do. And you don't use it. Like it's It's like you built this car and then you put it in a shop for people to come look at. You don't use the shop. Go drive the car. Go drive it around.
Yeah.
And I just feel like CrossFit makes you so exceptional. And that's why I told Dave this. I love watching like Chris Spieler mountain bike or Matt Chan climb mountains or ski or do whatever he does. Pat Barber go surfing. I love that all those guys, as they've moved into this later part of their life from competitive CrossFitting, that they are now doing all these other fun things, because CrossFit's fun, but skiing down a mountain's more fun. I mean, people might disagree with me on that, but I do CrossFit so I can ski down that mountain for years and years and years. And so I just like to see people use it, and that's why it's functional. It's functional movement. And so when I meet people that have this interesting background like you have, like the fact that you've traveled all over and done all this crazy shit, and the thing with it's just great. So I don't find how I could be intimidating. I really just find it like I just want to learn all this shit, and I have so much I could learn from you with the kids. Like, I just look at you like, well, you're doing what I want to do with my kids, and it's like you're the more disciplined. Like, if I was a CrossFitter, you're the more disciplined CrossFitter. You're doing it to another degree than I'm doing it. And if you go on my Instagram, you'll see I'm teaching the kids to skate. I'm teaching them to surf. I'm teaching them to swim.
I went on. I like the way that I like in the kitchen when you're having your son charge you. That was awesome. I actually do that. I'm actually going to do that. I love that.
My father-in-law is he was on last week. He was on the episode last week. He's a former NFL football player, so he loves that. That the kid, I like I said, whatever sports they want to do, I will stand by them. Like, if they don't want to do sports, I'll stand by. If they just want to be book nerds, I'll stand by them and I'll help them and pursue whatever. I mean, there's nothing I hate more than putting on makeup and playing with dolls with my daughter, but I do it all the time. And, I'd so much rather her surf with me every day. But got to do what they love.
You're kind of, that's cool that you have a hobby like that. I really don't do anything. My kids see me go in the garage and work out. And then other than that, I shuttle them around all day. But I guess I don't skateboard, but I do give them a lot while they're skateboarding, I'm watching them, or I pick up the trash at the skate park, or you know what I mean? Or I'm talking to the other parents. I stay engaged. I don't vanish.
Yeah. Somebody told me kids do.
I really want to do with my kids is
monkey see, monkey do. Kids do what you do. They don't do what you say. And like, I've been trying to get my daughter to learn Spanish, and she does not want to learn. Well, I don't know Spanish, and that's why she doesn't want to learn Spanish. I want her to learn piano. I don't play piano. I play guitar a tiny, tiny bit. So she'll probably want to play guitar. They do what you do. So
she's going to start a podcast. Dave told me the only people who do podcasts are people who have too much free time on their hand or are trying to stay relevant.
Well, I'm the latter.
That's what I told him. I go, oh, I'm the latter.
Yeah,
I'm just trying to stay relevant.
It's not the relevancy. It's honestly, my managers, when I first started doing podcasts years ago, they go, don't do podcasts. I said, why? They go, they're just swamplands. You're just going to go in there and nothing good's going to come out of it. Well, my first podcast got me a TV show. We got a development deal and a TV show based on talking shit. Oh, look at the Bingle Show. And then this show, I feel like I have an education that is unbelievable. I've talked to the best nutritionists, weight coaches, people like all around. I've learned so much from these conversations, and then I've gotten to share them with other people. So it's like, I always like to tell people, I like to share. Like, I learned this or I learned that. Well, this way, I just put it on, and maybe today people will take away from it, some tips on how to deal with their kids, or what they didn't know about Greg Glassman, or blah, blah, blah. So people have learned. So I think there's so much positive from them. Final question. Where is Greg Glassman right now?
I don't know if he wants anyone to know.
Really? I would say Hawaii. My guess would be Hawaii.
Okay, that's a good guess.
Off air, you're telling me. I'm good at secrets.
For sure, 100%, 100%. Off air, I'll tell you everything.
I would say Hawaii, and I just feel like the guy's got too much going on for him to stop. For him to stop what he did and just put an end.
Yes.
It's impossible.
I will tell you that. He has too much going on to stop. That he has there's things for sure that everyone who meets Greg will tell you. He is extraordinarily smart. I don't mean that like he's smart like just like a little bit smart, like he's really articulate.
Yeah.
So not only is he smart, but he can communicate his intelligence.
I regret that I never got to spend time with the guy.
Oh, you should interview him. You should reach out to him and interview him. He's very, very, he loves talking with people. He's not one of those people who like has ever isolated himself from self-interval. And yeah, he that brain is something else. He's kind of like, I used to refer to him as kind of like part Einstein, part Tupac, part Hemingway. I mean, he's really, really articulate. He's really smart, but he's also kind of like a rapper, comedian. Like he's very creative with his words.
Well,
he's a sorcerer. Remember, people, the world is, one last thought. The world is controlled by words. I know people don't realize exactly how true that is, but like in the Bugs Bunny cartoons, when the guy had a magic book and he would say the words and then the rabbit would appear, the world is actually like that. The person with the largest vocabulary and who can use it the best will often, or some Venn diagram of all that, that's who's in control. Okay, that's my final thought.
I've really enjoyed this conversation. Yours was way longer than Dave Castro's. Dave had to leave. I could have talked to Dave forever. I never thought I would want to like. I did not think Dave and I would get along like we did. Dave could be my buddy. I could hang out with Dave all day long. Like I put him in the category of like, I mentioned some names before: Pat Barber, Matt Shan, guys like that. That I just really, I'm so glad I've met so many guys in this community that I've really, and it's a lot of times it's the older, have been around for a bit, the Zach Forrest and the Tommy Hackenbrook and guys like that, but maybe it's because I'm old. But
Zach Forrest I love him.
He's great.
I love all the names you're dropping.
He's
all
great.
Awesome.
They've all taken me to do interesting shit. Zach took me to shoot guns. Pat took me surfing on a wave I shouldn't have been on. Tommy Hackenbrook and I ran 68 miles together.
Tommy's awesome too.
Yeah. There's one guy I hang out with that Castro did not like. I was telling him how I'm really good friends with Hunter McIntyre. And Castro's like,
oh.
And I had to tell him, like, again, those two would probably in another universe hit it off really well. But just the way they came together was not the right way. But there's just some amazing people in this world. So I do love talking.
I agree.
And Castro can fuck off when it comes to podcasts, his opinion on. And you know what? I think people's opinions of Castro are changing because they're seeing he's being like humanized by these podcasts, because the long form talk allows him to expand his ideas and get across more than these like sound bites that you see in short little videos. So,
right.
So they're great for him. I mean, after listening to him, oh, that's why he made that decision. Oh, that's why he did that. Oh, that totally makes sense. And I think
he's very well thought out.
Yeah.
Sometimes I'm like, hey, dude, stop thinking about that. Let's just roll. But man, motherfucking.
Well, we have to do this again sometime. Maybe I'll do your podcast and then I'll interview you doing it instead of you interviewed me on this show.
Oh, I love it.
I feel like I talked the whole time and I have so many questions I wanted out of you.
Would you come on my podcast?
Absolutely. Would love to.
Okay. That's awesome.
Would
okay.
Absolutely love to.
Okay. That's a great way.
And can't thank you enough for doing this. And I'm going to text you now with parenting questions. And
okay. Absolutely.
And I think the whole CrossFit world wants you and thinks that we don't want to take you away from your kids, but we think there needs to be a History of CrossFit movie that needs to be made.
Okay.
And you
show me the money.
maybe it's somewhere. If you build it, they will come.
Are we going to talk after we hang up? Because
yes,
I always on my podcast. Because on my podcast I just hang people.
Okay, well, thanks, guys, for listening to the WODCast podcast. Go to iTunes, rate, review, comment. Do all the same shit you do. We appreciate it. And Sevan, thank you so much. Where can they find you, though? That's the most important thing.
At 3 Plain Brothers, or at Sevan Mattosian, or you could sign up for my Patreon account and become the 3rd subscriber I've put on in 12 years.
Wow. And your podcast is on your site?
Yeah, my podcast is like something that I don't release it that often, but it's called the Sevan Podcast and Meet the Parents Podcast, and it's kind of like sporadic. Like 1 month I'll do 5, and then I'll go missing for a month and just be doing videos on Instagram. Really, I'm just obsessed with my kids.
Yeah, your Instagram's great, and if you want to see how to make your kids into badasses, go to his podcast. Go to his Instagram, which is at Sevan
3 Plain Brothers.
Oh, 3 Plain Brothers. Okay.
Yeah, I have 2. Basically, I've let them take over my Instagram account, which is Sevan Mattosian, and I have their own, which is 3 Plain Brothers, the number 3, and then the word Plain Brothers.
Okay. Awesome. Goodbye, everybody.